Hey, we'll see how many people show up. Well, it's a Monday. That's fine. I'll have fun. It'll be quiet. All right. Everybody, welcome to Coronavirus Central. What am I saying? Not Coronavirus Central anymore, right? We are now Tom Unscripted. You don't even know what the heck I'm doing today. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I was out shopping today, and obviously it went straight to my brain. The sun has fried my brain, so you're going to get me at half quality. But hopefully we'll have a very good episode today. Welcome to the show. I should call it Free Atlantic Radio Unscripted, right? So where should I pick? I actually had some friends of mine from Kansas say I have to include them now. So let's see if I can do this right. From Lawrence to Augusta and from Winnipeg to Winchester. How's that sound? That's in Virginia. And I've been working at that. Good to see you here, Lyle. Good to see you, Patches, Joseph, Arian. I think you're glad you're here. Hopefully you get what I sent you, brother, and it'll be there soon. It is in the mail, so I can tell you that much. I put it out on, last week. I think it was on Thursday, but I don't want to swear by that. Otherwise, welcome to everyone who's here for the show tonight. We will go through it. I'm going to put a link up here. We'll talk about this in a little bit. I assume all of you have access to Twitter. If you don't really, it's not a big deal, but I just wanted to share this because it is going to include some maps later. You all love a map episode, and I've been working very, very hard with a special thank to Joseph, who helped me with one of the states in this map. So it is definitely good. But we're going to start the show with a reset. And why am I saying a reset? I've been trying. A lot of people work. Good to see you, Susan. A lot of people try to look at things in the very small picture. They'll look at a piece of evidence and they'll basically chew the hell out of a piece of evidence and not try to see the bigger social scene of what's happening. And that's really what I've been working on, because I kind of only see the social scene in America going one of three ways at this point. And the virus and the economic pressures and all these backdrops just exacerbate the existing problem. So let's talk about what the three outcomes are. None of them are particularly good. Outcome number one. Outcome number one is this, that the rioting that happens in the streets, it doesn't get reported. It's happening now for 51 days in Portland, starts taking over cities, and we have something akin to what happened in Russia in 1917. I don't reckon it the most likely of all outcomes, but at that point, then you get plunged into a civil war where the government potentially is on one side against an urban protest movement that goes absolutely nuts and has support from China and potentially Russia. It's an option I see as possible, and I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been reading Hope and Tragedy, Carol Quigley's book. And even though I'm only about 400 pages in, the thing's about 1,000 pages. One of the things that I'm learning is what happened in the fall of Russia, the fall of Germany, all these different countries. Good to see you, Firo. Good to see you, Marina. Glad you're here with us this evening. And as I was looking through these books, what I was understanding and learning better is that things go kind of nutty, a lot like that, Brian. Things can go nutty very, very quickly. So that's option number one of what happens. And maybe there's a alternative to option number one, which just takes a little longer, which is that woke culture is what people really want. They are somehow the majority, or at least no one's willing to stand against them, that they do end up winning the election. And Joseph Biden is beat as a piñata by his suitably diverse staff into supporting whatever programs they require of him, given in whoever is the victim of the day. In which case, then you still end up in a position where you end up with option number two, which is this, that the right gets beat so badly that they get mad and realize there's no way they can coexist with the existing country that exists here, and they decide they're going to go to war with them. And that is a very likely possibility. I can't tell you how many people are going ahead and, I mean, they're already talking about Guy Fawkes Day, right? Remember, the 5th of November. If any of you saw that movie V for Vendetta, then you know the story goes from the gunpowder plot, where literally people thought to blow up Parliament. And that's what it comes from, the mask you've seen with the mustache and the beard in it, the little goatee kind of looking beard. And really, the right, looking at a country that's going to destroy everything it believes in, attack its identity, attack its beliefs, attack its very genetics, might go ahead and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should just fight now, better than being thrown in a camp for being politically incorrect and getting re-educated to death. Not an unlikely outcome, and actually one of the things that I see is quite probable. Number three out there, which is that somehow this thing all gets reconciled by both ends getting purged and a neoliberal elite going ahead, giving us a little check to be quiet, sit there, take our vaccine, don't ask too many questions until whoever gets whatever they want with us, and we go back to living in a life that's a little more dismal version of what we used to live before, minus the fact that afterwards we may be in some sort of a war, whether it's with China, with each other, it doesn't really matter. Just some way to make money on it. And I think that's a very possible outcome too. But I look at each of these versions of the future, and personally, I think the Civil War future is coming. I've thought that for a while, and I expect we'll be in a hot war within the next 4 months. But we'll see if I'm wrong about that. But I think we've gotten to the point where, like, it's very hard to go ahead and imagine a future where people get along very well. And thanks to see everyone who's here. Lee, good to see you. Brian, Carrie, thank you. Yeah, I'm the good news, I do have some very, very good news for you guys, actually. As of tomorrow, it should, if what I'm told is accurate, we will be seeing my new show, Free Atlantic Radio, will be live on iTunes as well as Google Play. So if you want to listen in, I highly encourage any of you to do so. It'll be up. I also want to encourage you to listen to Free Atlantic Voices. I'm going to tell you, it's political. I'm not going to lie to you. We can't cover things half fully. But I think that those are the sort of things that, or I should say, though there's some good programming there for you guys to listen to. It goes a little bit more into my thinking, how I approach different questions, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. If nothing else, it'll be an opportunity for you all to listen. So go ahead, do that. And while you're here, by the way, hit the like button. I'm told it helps. I don't know if it helps. I think it gets shadow banned either way. Doesn't really matter. But go ahead and hit the like. If you want to send some help along, CVC PRV works. It's better than the super chats. That's the Venmo. Or if you want to send any notes. And hopefully you guys liked the mailbag episode I did. I know that Sharon definitely liked the response that I sent her. And I like answering your questions. So if you write me a good question, you'll get a good answer. You write a not so good question, you might get a good answer. Or you might get a real sarcastic answer. And if you write a snotty question, you're not going to get any answer. And that's how that's going to be. So we'll see how that goes forward here. But, people have asked me, why don't I cover the virus? Here is my current take on the virus. Here's what I actually believe. It's a great question. I'm happy to answer it. I actually believe that it is, what should I say? I believe it's nanotech. I believe what actually happens here, based upon some interviews I've listened to, some research I've done, and just the sort of solutions that are being posited. The tell is how fast the vaccine is coming out, right? So the vaccine is coming out, and they're saying it will be able to handle all these mutations because it has nanotech embedded in it, and that it's able to handle these sort of things. But what that means is the virus itself, given that we've seen all these different permutations, may also have nanotech in it. And what I would suggest to everyone involved is that there's a very high probability that any vaccine that comes out, as well as the virus, is designed to go ahead and spread this nanotech. And what can it do? I don't actually know. Let me take a step back. If you get into the world of intelligence, okay, one of the things that you end up finding out is that when you're studying this, that there's a lot of really shady people and shady information, and you have a lot more questions than anything else. We like to live in the world of solid science and solid beliefs where everything's qualitative and it's as easy as reading a lab report. And when you start going to the limits of where governments don't want to talk about, the shady ends of bioterrorism, you end up looking at different sources where you can't necessarily trust how should I say, you can't necessarily trust the mainstream narrative, but you also have to look at their sort of approach to a question rather than how extraordinary the conversation becomes. I believe some absolutely crazy things, I will say, according to what most people are prepared to consider, but you have to start where you think people can understand, and then kind of develop it out from there. And I always did that with Coronavirus Central. I never went ahead of the evidence, even though I suspected very early this was bioterrorism. But to answer Lee's question, do I think the testing is inserting nanotechnology into people? Yes, I do. I think it is. I think the swab test is. And I think that there's been a strange correlation between testing and sickness that suggests that there is a unusual vector to this. One of the things that always bothered me about studying coronavirus throughout this whole effort was I panicked about this in late January. Dana will attest to this. And we thought, based on the speed that was happening in Wuhan, that America would be crushed by mid-February. I mean, we literally were that far ahead of it, and it never happened. And we've seen groups of people who should get sick not get sick. We've seen groups of people who shouldn't get sick get sick. And mind you, viruses can do strange things, and I don't want to assume the most radical of all outcomes because of this. But what I wanted to say was that we are dealing with a situation here where I think it's reasonable to ask if this is what it appears to be. And, like Joseph says rightly, it's going too fast not to be pre-manufactured. You see some of the people rushing into it, Gates and his efforts, and the WHO, and some of the things with Fauci. And I don't have a lot of faith in any of the actors. I think that there is something here that people don't really understand. And I think that when you see a new technology being tried out and rushed to market, I don't necessarily trust that. The funny thing about the people in charge is they always have a way of saying what they really mean. So Operation Warp Speed, right? So what does warp mean? Warp means to distort, to change the way it works. And so when I look at what the vaccine is in Operation Warp Speed, it is to distort people as quickly as possible. And I think that is the case. And the thing about it, Firo, I will say this is because she says there's no vaccine, there's never been a vaccine for coronavirus. I think that you could have a vaccine that works if it isn't a vaccine, and that's the whole argument, right? That nanotech would not be a vaccine. Because, all right, so what is a vaccine technically? You take in live serum, theoretically, or some other dead form of a pill, of an infection, so that you how should I put this? When you end up taking it, what would end up happening is you develop antibodies to the virus or whatever the contagion is, and that those antibodies would give you safety. But we have seen that over and over again. They've reported the unique thing with COVID is antibodies don't seem to last at all for any reason, and we struggled with it because we looked at these different strains. You'll remember we looked at all the different lettered strains, and we were like, why is this happening badly in China, but then not badly in Japan and not badly in one country? We're like, well, is it the masks? But we've seen countries that wear masks do well, and we've seen countries that wear masks do poorly. And, I'm not saying it's 5G towers, but I mean, I've heard an argument made that this is something that can be activated through some sort of remote control. I've heard that it could be bioaccumulative. And look, this is stuff that scientists wouldn't even research if it was true. And I got to the point where I can't tell you a story where the evidence isn't out there. Now, I'd be really curious to see the evidence. It would be fascinating to see. And it's a testable theory. I mean, people should be willing to test crazy theories if only to discredit them, to see if, it responds to different waves. I mean, and that sounds crazy at first, but cancer and chemo and radiation is the same thing. So I think that this is one of the things in the back.
In the back.
Yeah, Sheriff Buford Chief Justice here in the person of Dana. Great movies, by the way. You could never make movies that funny these days. But anyways, I don't think nanotech is a good thing. And I do think that, as Ross says, that there is a prepared concoction. I do think there are ulterior motives. I am incredibly skeptical of what's out there. And I will tell you, I will not be taking the vaccine when it comes out. If it's out 5 years, 10 years, will I consider taking a look then? Maybe. But I'm not gonna be the first one to take it. And I don't have a lot of faith about what this is. I'll tell you, I probably wouldn't take it at all anyway. I mean, I haven't been to a doctor in more years than I can count, and I'm not even joking about that. But I mean, the thing about it is, the way these events are happening is very bizarre. I mean, everything. I mean, I think we're rushing toward a civil war. I think that there's a really interesting situation playing out in Oregon, where basically rioters are being encouraged to destroy the city, downtown. The local mayor, Ted Wheeler, won't do anything. The governor won't do anything, and they want to put it all on the president. What do I think of them wanting to give it to African Americans first? I think African Americans will be more likely to get sick if they get it first, to be honest with you. I mean, it almost would stink of eugenics, to be honest with you. But, they gave it. I think the thing that was disturbing to me is, you want to tell who did get it first, is that, yeah, I saw the mom wall. The thing that is disturbing about who's getting it first is the military's getting it first. And the military is not the sort of people you want to be at risk. And I feel very concerned for the long-term safety of this nation if our frontline defenders are being exposed to untested technology, or technology that has unknown means or intentions. Because if you don't necessarily agree to do what you're told to do, I mean, imagine this. I mean, let's just do the theoretical, right? Imagine that you have a genetic plague in you, where someone can, at a press of a button, either A, they can either make you do something without you knowing it, or B, if you don't comply with something you're told to do, you won't be able to stop them. And that's where we're ending up in. And, the age of the human drone is coming, where the wedding of man and machine and the destruction of humanity as a being with free will is gone. And free will is predicated under the assumption we live in an environment that has meaning, that our choices have purpose, and we are moving away from that. So if you look at everything coming down the line here, I think it's very easy to be skeptical about it. And I am incredibly worried for the safety and welfare of our species. And so when it comes to Black lives, to be honest with you, I think that giving them the vaccine first would be setting them up for a terrible fall. And wouldn't that be the thing, though, right? So let's imagine let's just pretend that this happens, that you give the Black population the vaccine first, and theoretically, if they don't get sick, then everyone else will rush to get it. And if they do get sick, then how much greater will the anger be for that? And so I don't know. I mean, when they had that movie Pandemic, they had a system where, it was randomly selected. If you were going to have something that was really important, maybe you do it that way. But I don't know. The funny thing about Black Lives Matter, too, is the people who run it, not only they train Marxists, but the people who finance it, all the money goes to Act Blue. I mean, it's the biggest source of funding for the Biden campaign. And when you look at these things, it was really interesting. Black Lives Matter was actually getting a ton of money, and then they stopped getting funding so much when they started questioning who they're not allowed to question. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Black Lives Matter will walk the same path as the alt-right did, and then they'll realize that pattern recognition will get you in a lot of trouble. But Sam asked me, do I think Portland is being used as a proving ground for training and tactics for Antifa, kind of train the trainers so they can go home and recruit and train their own selves? I think that's possible. Absolutely. I know that there were some people who went over to Syria. I know there are some radical Islamists who are in the midst of that mess. And I hear, I mean, what was it? The U.S. Customs a couple weeks ago caught a container with 10,000 suppressors in there, silencers for those not familiar with weapons. So obviously someone's trying to help things, and the things are coming in from China. Do I think it's going to go well? No. And I don't know what to happen. I mean, what do you do when the government is on the side of the radicals against the people? And, not necessarily Trump, although I think he's sort of a non-actor or stooge at this point. But I think more than that, I mean, you have a problem where no one's going to represent the people to keep them safe. I mean, Joseph makes a good point. The McCloskeys in St. Louis got charged with a felony for defending their property. And people are taking the right lesson from this. I mean, I don't know if every effort is being made to push America into a war. I mean, people are so angry. You see the Democrats. I mean, imagine if I said this, just imagine for 1 second, that ultimately this happens. That, if I were to go out there and say, I am a Republican and my new policy is we're only going to give COVID payments to white people because white people are a more productive portion of the economy than black people, and it's really going to be better for the whole economy that way. Could you imagine how badly someone would get pilloried for saying that? And yet the Democrats said the same thing in reverse. They literally went out there and they said that we are considering only giving COVID unemployment payments to black people because they're bigger victims, so therefore they deserve more money. And we've reached a point where if government is literally going to be nothing more than the force being used to take things from one group of people to another, I don't see what option we have but to see a fight emerge pretty soon. And whether that fight happens as a separation that's done relatively cleanly or something very, very ugly, I think that either way we kind of end up in the same place. And there are other ways, of course, and I talk about those, about a more peaceful separation, about different ideas that could be done. But I mean, it's a conversation I have with more frequency these days. I mean, look, I'm the guy who wrote The Coming Civil War. People ask me the question, can this thing be prevented? I mean, I think at this point, can I ask a worse question? Should it be? I mean, do you think that this is? I mean, you tell me. Are you guys okay with a government to help some people at expenses of others? Are you okay with a government that enforces law for some people but not others? Are you okay with a government that's just fine with anarchy on the streets if they like the cause that's causing it? I don't know. Are people going to be all right with that? I mean, apparently, as long as it doesn't affect enough people, they're willing to tolerate it. And is that just because there's a Republican in the White House? Maybe. Is it because we're all too comfy? Maybe. I mean, and what would happen if you fought it? I mean, the irony of this is if you try to do something virtuous and fight the damn thing, you'll probably have the FBI come in on you like a ton of bricks. And that's no good either. So you have to wonder what happens when the people in charge of a society try to demolish it. Are we in World Trade Center 7? That's what it feels like to me sometimes. And I don't know what to tell you. Let me give some love for this tea. Dana made me digestive tea. It should help. It is a narco-tyranny on steroids. And for people who don't know what that is, it's literally a narco-tyranny means anarchy for those who don't follow the law and tyranny for those who do. it really is the case of how it ends up happening. Let me go back and grab some of your questions, then we'll come back through, and then I will go ahead and we'll do some map stuff. You guys like maps, right? And I'll give you some inside this pool so you learn some different things if I missed anything, because hopefully I didn't. Is it more AIDS than a respiratory virus? To what I have been reading, Lee, it basically, if you want to think of it this way, is it's a little viral assembly wagon where you can pick different things, whatever misery you want to have. I mean, maybe not all of them, but some of them. For someone who would not be drafted in war, what would be a useful thing to do in that time to keep people safe? Alexa, especially for women and children, this is something my wife is beginning to work with the Atlantic Women's Auxiliary. This idea that we want to work on something we've been calling Project Exodus, where we help people. Yeah, I know, but we're starting to do the thought work on it. We want to have an opportunity for people to get out of bad places beforehand so that they're not stuck in terrible positions. I mean, people don't realize how quickly food will run out if things go kinetic. And I just don't see how they can't. I really don't. I mean, the provocations are too high. And the funny thing is, the weird thing about the whole thing is it's the media who's doing it. I mean, I don't think most people are this mad, but the media, the politicians, and the money people are doing it. The elites are trying to set everyone against one another. And realistically, I think they're probably frustrated with the apathy people have, but people don't have passion and belief anymore because the system has been so, it has coddled people so much on the one hand, and on the other hand, it has destroyed those who spoke out. I mean, look, there were people who spoke out for years and years and years, and they were treated as terrorists by a state that literally thinks you're a hero if you go get into wars in foreign countries, but you're a villain if you go ahead and try to say your country should adhere to its own laws. So it's not surprising that people kind of checked out, but this widespread global apathy, I mean, at least the one thing I'll give credit to Antifa for is this. They manage, even if they're paying for a lot of them, but I'm sure not all of them, to get their people on the streets. And when they do that, it makes a difference. People do care, and that's where power comes. Power does come from the streets. Power comes from the ability to impose change. And this right now it's just a one-sided fight. And some of you will have noticed that I've used a couple of my last episodes to talk to law enforcement personnel, and that's no accident. I did that on purpose. I did that because we need people who stand up for the people. We need people who are trained to fight, who know the issues, and even if fighting means just defending those who are around them, that's what's needed. And if the politicians don't treat you right, man, why do we give power to courts? I mean, here's the truth of it. You think the courts and you think the lawyers have the power. It's the bailiff in the courtroom who has the power. It's the guy who has the gun. Otherwise, it's just a talking person with a funny wig or with a robe like an undertaker. I don't really listen to the law at this point more than I have to because the law doesn't pretend to represent me equally. It doesn't adhere to its own internal consistency. And look, I'm not trying to be radical, but the reality is this is the world we live in these days. I mean, if you have security, the only security you have really is that you can take for yourself. And, if they sent 10 cops to ever come get me, I would try to have 30 men to oppose them because you know what? That's where we're at. Because otherwise, all you end up being is a victim to the villains who are against you and whatever side you're on, whatever you believe. I think people need to realize real fast we're in clan warfare time. And you can already see it happening. And to be very clear, the blame for this, people may not want to hear this, rests squarely with the Democratic Party. And I'm going to tell you why it does. Because they did not enforce the law in their own cities. I mean, you love him or hate him, Trump has not jumped in to fight anything. People say disappearing vans, people in these things. But would you be okay if someone went ahead and for 50 days in a row graffitied your house, your apartment, your property, your town? And the answer should be no. You have a right to property. Your property has value. Whatever you own, you have the right to safety. You have the right to property. And they didn't care to do this. They just did not care. They let it happen. And the media gave them a free pass and all these things. And I saw this was already happening. And this is something that's different. It's scarier. It's darker, and people need to be aware of it. And it's not going away. It's getting worse. And they're getting more weapons, and they're getting more organized, and they're getting more people. And it's going to be eventually, it's going to be a fight. How do I think it's going to shake out? How do I actually think? I think what's going to happen is that anything and everything that can be done to make things worse will. Trump will be set up to lose the election regardless of whatever the results are. And look, the economy, I mean, there's 50 million people out of work. You don't need a big stretch for him to not win the election. Nonetheless, that's how I think it will actually shake out. And when it does, then we will find out if people are going to quietly go into the night of totalitarianism, that something that looks like Maxine Waters would create, or if we're going to have a straight up civil war, where you will see, and you'll probably see it in places like Idaho, to be honest with you. You'll think of Coeur d'Alene or places like that, where you'll see them step forward. What's wrong?
Where's that thing I gave you?
I took it off for a second. It was over. It's right here.
Oh, I was going to put this on it.
Oh, here, yeah.
For your tummy.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, they can see you on the camera. So say hi. Everyone say hi to Dana. She's here.
I'm
She's helping
sorry.
me. I've been having not the greatest help.
I don't look too much like a corpse today.
Yeah, she never.
I feel like one. I don't look that bad though.
But anyway, so Alexa, that was a very long answer to a very short question. I apologize for my rambling, but I do think one of the things that you can do is you can help people, and you can be decent, and you can plan for those around you and try to help your community. And pray for 99% of people. You want to avoid whatever happens with a 10-foot pole. If you're part of the other 3%, man, you got to look and decide what you believe in. I mean, this is a gut check time. And, for me, I'll tell you, I believe in liberty. I believe in good order. I believe in my own identity. I certainly believe in my faith. I'll fight for that. I believe in my homeland. I believe in my region. I believe in protecting the wife. That's always very important. Got to do that. I think that some of us will have to do a little bit more. And this isn't an age where just voting is going to work. I'd love for there to be a smarter alternative. I mean, Lord knows it's what I talk about that I want to be on. That smells wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, I just stuck it up my nose.
Anyway, a little comic relief here from Fozzie over here. Waka, waka, waka.
It's supposed to help your stomach.
Oh, well, that's good. I hope it does.
Peppermint, fennel,
that's
juniper.
Good. Yeah, my stomach's been a little upset today. So
I almost said Jupiter instead of juniper.
Oh, Jupiter, yeah. So supposedly, all right, you want to hear something crazy? Supposedly there's trans-dimensional fluctuations on Jupiter, and we hear asteroids might be coming. So if you've seen the preview for that movie, Greenland, if you haven't, by the way, it looks like an awesome disaster movie.
It does.
Check it out. You would probably want to be aware that's coming.
And bootleg it.
Don't say that on the air.
Does it really matter?
Yeah, it matters.
At this point, does it really matter?
I guess I am the Pirate King. I am the Pirate King of the North.
If bootlegging movies is the least of,
Yeah, I know.
Seriously.
That's like if I do a misdemeanor, I'm having a good day. No, it makes it loud and annoying. I'm good. No, I'm good.
Warm.
I'm okay. I'm fine. Thank you. I like it hot. All right. No, we're 27 minutes in. Hello, everybody. You're listening to Tom here on Tom Unscripted. I hope your questions are coming down below. I'm going to scroll down, see what's happening here, and we'll see what you guys have been writing here. We talk about Portland. We talk about that. Do I think the government is causing problems in order to save us, enslave us, to get them to beg it for? Absolutely, Ross. No doubt. We benefit from, where did we go? I saw Eki here. Good to see you, Eki, by the way. We benefit from institutionalized racism and our active denial of our liabilities from historic abuses handed down by our ancestors need to be addressed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The thing about it is you put one group against the other, you're going to end up with a fight. This is the whole thing. They do studies on this. Who was talking about this? Who was I listening to? Was it Steve Quayle? I don't know who it was. They were mentioning the Putnam study. And every study they've ever done about diversity, especially diversity of belief, it leads to conflict. And why wouldn't it? If you have a truth that you hold it, and someone else has a truth and they hold it, you end up fighting. And you shouldn't, the goal of fighting isn't good. Good fences make good neighbors. That's why we need better borders. We'll talk about that. What do I think about the judge being shot? So, this is interesting. So one of the judges, it wasn't the judge that got shot, it was their son, but it was a judge who was going to be ruling on something related to the Epstein case. I don't know what the details of what she was ruling on was, but the son got shot there, and apparently someone else got shot too. I think the son died, and someone else got shot, if I remember the story. But I think that there's some powerful people, man, who do not want information coming out of what they do behind closed doors. I mean, you ever seen Eyes Wide Shut? It's probably something like that, to be honest with you. Let's see what we have here. The McCloskeys are up against a $70,000 donation to the prosecutor from a Soros Foundation. Yeah, I mean, look, you can't have a prosecutor saying, but I mean, honestly, you know what? The same thing happened at Charlottesville with James Fields. Let's be blunt. I mean, the guy's driving through, they go and rat and massacre. They try to go bang on his car. The dude just tries to get out of there, and he hits a girl. She ends up dying from a heart attack because she's overweight. And this is what happens. And then he's presented as the worst terrorist attack on history, whereas meanwhile, it's no worse than 3 a.m. in Chicago. And the whole thing was set up where even the report was run the other way. But this is the whole narrative. What we've learned absolutely one thing. beyond any doubt. We've learned that propaganda can remake reality. We live in a world now where boys don't have to have penises and girls don't have to have vaginas. This is the world we live in. We live in a world where if something is said enough times, loud enough, and if the social punishments are bad enough, people will learn to believe the lie. Any of you X-Files fans out there back in the day, you remember Chris Carter believed the lie? That's what we do here, and we practice double speak and double think, double plus good, and we say everything's good. Even on this show, how many words don't I say that I could say, And I don't say it because, one, I try to be polite, and two, I go on here. But look, there's whole things that are forbidden from certain groups of people. We are disenfranchised of the ability to have certain thoughts, and when you're disenfranchised of the ability to have thoughts, you're disenfranchised for the ability to have outcomes. So we'll see. All right, Denisha writes, I'm late logging in. Do I think we're going to one world government civil war? Yes and yes. I think that Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 are real. I think, look, all right, so let me take a step back, right? You guys like to deep dive. So that's why I've been reading the Quigley book. I've been reading Globalism for Globalists. And what they argue essentially was that World War II was a terrible mistake of miscalibrated economics and narrow political interests where they couldn't figure out how to globally protect the elites. The elites have a big problem. The Industrial Revolution created a situation where it created more wealth by the possibility of greater production by using non-manpower. But in order to have that wealth be realized into profit, which is what they really like, in order for them to have control over people, what they had to do was they had to increase consumption. They had to allow more people to have more wealth. And it turns out, basically, they didn't like that world either because too many people got too involved and had too many hands in the pie, and they ended up being unstable. And they want to go back to the old system, which, to be fair, is what most of human history was. A few people running everything, and it was stable. It didn't advance very much. It was sustainable, right? It was the words you hear used over and over again today. And what the way it achieved that sustainability is through stagnation. The same way the Chinese Mandarin system. Remember, China lasted 6,000 years without too many problems. The people who were on top largely stayed on top. And if there was social mobility, it happened slowly over many generations due to genetic drift mostly, or to a lesser extent to economic networking. So in the same sort of way, the elites want to go back to that system. They want to go back to something. And with automation, they can do it where they can purify their own genetics and they can use the rest of us as differently. I had someone ask me what I thought today about how they look at us. I'm like, well, they look at us like you look at pests. If something's pretty like a butterfly, you might want it to be around. If something's like a moth, it doesn't bother you too much, you'll tolerate it. If something's a mosquito, you spray it till it dies. And that's literally how we're seen as we see Homo noeticus, as they occasionally call it, or Homo deus, or whatever phrase they're using this week to describe their new highfalutin status in life that they're seeking, Nephilim all, as a way of how they want to approach things. So in the one world government, you read things like the Georgia Guidestones, you can read transhumanism. Basically, their argument is the world could be a park if only we could keep pesky humans out. And that's kind of where we're going. And the most efficient way to do that is to control demolitions, to allow people to go forward and take care of their own. It's no different. Let's be blunt. It's no different than why inner cities for many years had the gun policies they did, because they figured the problems were removing themselves. The other people went out to the suburbs, and they tried to keep safe. And, there was a little bit of overlap of the violence, but it was reckoned the least expensive and least troubling way to deal with a social problem no one ever wanted to mention, which is at the heart of Black Lives Matter, or at least should be. It's black on black violence driven by the drug trade, which, by the way, has to do with money and banks and money laundering. But you can't have those questions. Gary Webb asked those questions 20 years ago. The guy went nuts and killed himself. I wonder what was done to him to get him to that point. I mean, go read Dark Alliance. The stuff is not new. I mean, you can find the answers to these things if you want to look at it. But in a lot of times, that's the thing that's hard today, finding the answers, because there's so much disinformation in the internet age. Because in the age of documents, people had to actually work a little harder for their information, and now anyone can have a theory. But my theory is pretty simple about what we need to do about it, is that you can't leave power at the center of it, because if you do, it's going to end badly. So we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to get through your questions, and then we'll go ahead and play some mapping. So, because I always like mapping. They're always escalating this, and they're going to get it, man. Joseph, they're going to get it. I guarantee you, it's just a question of when and how long. People can only take so much before they snap, and that's why I did my free Atlantic Radio episode on demoralization. I mean, how many of you are demoralized? I'm a little demoralized. I mean, I got up every morning and told you how the world was going to end, and no one seemed to care. And I think that was a tell. If people were really worried enough about the virus, they would have handled it differently. They know something we don't. and you have to judge people by not what they say, but their actions. Something is funny, and it doesn't mean it's not safe. It doesn't mean people aren't getting sick. Quite the opposite. I mean, I think the short-sighted view is that people are not at risk of this. I think the deeper view is how deep does the risk go, and given everything that I've seen that they're willing to do, I mean, they're willing to surrender whole cities to be destroyed. To me, this feels like the victory lap where someone's watching the ants scurry around right before they shake them to death. But we'll see. I don't know. Let's see what we got here. Greoric, good to see you. Snorting perfume. I know, it smells good, doesn't it? If I have a garden and a library, you have everything you need. I would have faith, family, and firearms. Well, we got all those rocking around here, of course. And my library is pretty enjoyable. I always get new books here. I get interesting books. Check this one out. I got this the other day. I was at a thrift store. I got this for $1, and like no one would have any interest in reading this, but it's neuroscience, a study for communicative disorders. It talks about how people speak and how people think. I just spent $1 on it. I mean, I always keep things around. It's more of a reference than stuff I'm probably going to read right away. Oh yeah, well yeah, it does help. I don't know anyone can figure you out, dear, but I mean it can't hurt. I don't know. Oh, speaking of which, so I got this too. Let me show you one of the things. So I thought this was awesome. It's so kitschy, but I love it. Check this out. Great minds discuss ideas, and Dana convinced me by it. Average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. So we are definitely an above average show here because we talk about events, but we often talk about ideas. And a lot of people can't talk about ideas. They're just like, you're bad. I'm not going to normalize you. I should come on and do the cancel culture hour. Maybe when we get to a good holiday, I'll do a show where I'll just be cancel culture. You guys send me stories. I'll find stories to read, and I'll explain why every story is ridiculous. I will go so Orwell that literally, I'll probably get a lot of new liberal fans, actually, if I do it. But it's absolutely crazy. But a garden and a library will teach you a lot. Although I think the library gives more satisfaction than the garden to me. And I'll tell you why. Just when I go into the garden, I mean, our garden's growing very well, but man, it is a war zone. You got little critters going around. You got animals jumping in there. You got to watch the water, the soil content. You wouldn't think that little thing of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium is that hard to track. It really is. Just one of those things. Welcome to the Pirates of Penzance. That is absolutely so. Fourth degree assault. I know that's crazy. The judge was involved assigned to a case involving the Deutsche Bank in relation to Epstein. It was a war about financial transactions. Did you guys see, speaking of financial transactions, you see that thing Judge Greg Penn, the former senator of New Hampshire? He was predicting $1 will go down to 60 cents of value by the end of next year. And that would be a heck of a thing. One of the things I was reading about was deflationary shocks and inflationary shocks. And with how much we're spending, and not just us, the whole world really, to go ahead and maintain these sort of rules, you're going to have currency collapses happen in some countries. Probably not first in the United States, but it could happen here. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen in other places, perhaps in Canada. Red Bull purged their diversity and inclusion executives. Yeah, I saw the old dude got rid of his HR department. That's interesting. Have I noticed that dissident is becoming more and more the norm? Just a few years ago, it wasn't the case. I know, just a few years ago, it's just people like you, me, Ross, Eki, and a couple more of us out here in the wilderness, man. Now it's cool to be uncool, Gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. Okay, I'm not gonna sing. Hey, gotta be cruel to be kind. How do I think we should prepare for these times, Denisha? First thing I recommend to you, it'll sound trite, it's not, is pray. These battles are beyond us. Militaries fighting one another, police against us, nanotech, states fighting one another. Pray, get right with the Lord because your life may be very short. And even if it isn't, you need help and get it where you can. Next thing you do is go ahead and get right with your family. It's too late in the game to not get along with loved ones. If you can make peace with them, do so. Figure out where you're at. Make sure the community you're at makes sense to you. Get to a place that is safe for you. And if you're not in a place like that, try the best you can. Make friends, make connections. Realize that you live in a dangerous world and that the biggest attribute you could have to help yourself is to find people around you who can help. Once you've done that, then you focus on the basic supply stuff, what we talk about. We talk about food. We talk about water. We talk about security. We talk about warmth or energy. We talk about medicine. You know your needs. Make sure you've covered them. The ability to defend yourself using whatever you have. A gun is better. A bat is okay. Whatever you need. If you have something, if you have to throw ninja stars at people you get from a Halloween store, it's better than nothing. And having friends is really smart. I think that's a good way to do that. Let's see, your face when the acceleration, or that feel when the acceleration is actually designed to collapse everything into a new medieval period. I think it's absolutely a case it is. Eki's saying learn machine tools or generation of power. Not a bad idea. Getting a little generator, if you have the means, is not a bad idea at all. I think that's smart. I have some patricians here. So absolutely. Bob, good to see you here. Awesome. And Copal as well there. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe what Spencer said today. Well, let's see if we have here. I don't know. Well, you'll have to let me know. I wasn't listening. Toga party. We'll see. And thank you, Gray Oric. I hope so. Yeah, I pray a lot, man. I read. Can I reach it from here? I probably could, but I'd risk messing up the thing. Let's see if I can. Well, I have so many books in here, but I have books on tops of books. I got Matthew Henry's Concordance of the Bible. The guy wrote this in the 1800s, but it's this brilliant exposition of what's out there. And one of the things that was really important is, and I would say this, if there is a book you want to have or knowledge you think is essential and you count on being able to get it from the internet, like you regularly reference it, Dana and I have put quite a bit of effort into building a reference library of information we have. And you don't need to buy and have a bazillion books like I do. I mean, it's cool if you do, by the way. But if you don't, it's not the end of the universe. But you need to have the things you need to know around you. And whatever those are might be very different for you than it is for me. Each one of us has different things that we think are our priorities depending upon what we use. I'm just looking what I have around me. I would show you, but my selection of things like that is sort of out of my reach. What's near me is the Christian sections down there, the stuff on China and sort of random stuff. Modern politics is here, and this is kind of a random shelf. There's like a little bit of an order, but not really. I should really organize my library. Maybe I think someone would love to do it. It would be fun. I have a lot of really weird books that, including some books that are obscure, you're not easily going to find and you can't easily get these days. But anyway, so let's go to the map. I want to talk about the map because I worked hard on the map. So we're going to talk about the map because we always love map shows, right? I'm going to share a link with you so you have the map. So I have worked really, 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 really long and hard about what areas to include in the map when we were doing the Free Atlantic Nation. I'm going to talk about this a lot on the Wednesday podcast, so I'm going to try not to repeat myself, but we need something better to think of, and we need to have some degree of planning. So if you look at this map has, I think I did the map on it. It was like 85, I want to say, different states that emerge out of this. And this would be the Northeast if we all went out together, pretty much. And I've talked to people all around the country a little bit about who wants in, who wants out, who wants to understand these things. And it turns out it's pretty much the line of the Civil War, which is interesting, with the exception. The only state on there that is not originally part of the Union during the Civil War was Virginia. And Virginia's been so colonized at this point, it's no longer really a southern state. But I talked to people down south, and they want to do their own thing, and that's great. So Tennessee, North Carolina, Arkansas, you can't see that line there. They're kind of south of that, as are Texans. And out west, the line's a little bit blurrier. I know there's some people out in the Rockies. They're definitely Westerners. I do think before it's all said and done, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota will be in that. And as well as the Canadians will always be welcome. We love Canadians here, no matter what. So that is something that's really good. But the reason why I did this is not just so I can draw fun lines on the map. Actually, every one of those represents a coherent cultural or economic area around the city. And certain cities were pulled out. You can see New York got pulled out, Chicago got pulled out, Detroit got pulled out. And you can see smaller zones around Philadelphia, Boston, Washington, D.C., for example. Minneapolis is another one I made a pull out from. Louisville, a little less so. We did that. So all of these things, every one of these is under 5 million people. So it's much, much more manageable rather than having a whole bunch of people oppress another group of people. So you don't all have to fight each other. Economically, they tend to be a coherent region. And the nice news is if I missed it, let's say I put too few regions in some states, like maybe Iowa should have been 5 regions instead of 3. Great, the model works for that. Or Kentucky doesn't want to be 7. It wants to be for, and I thank Joseph for helping me with that. It doesn't really matter how many there are. What matters is that people are happier in them because power needs to be returned to you, the individuals. And how do you do that? You give money back locally, and that's what the Atlantic Nation has said. If you read my new Albion books, and I'm going to insist on this, we're going to give a quarter of the money to the town, a quarter of money to the county, a quarter of money to these micro states that you see on the map, and then a quarter of money will go to the national level government or the crown if it goes the way I want it to. But ultimately, the idea is that you don't have to give power over to other people, and that's what people don't understand. You can take sovereignty back. It's really not that hard. It's going to take a little bit of courage and a lot of vision, and that's what we're doing here. And I was so excited. I was talking to some people up in Superior, the part of the UP of Michigan, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to go ahead and put the guns of Navarone on the Mackinac Bridge so people can't get in here." Just got to make sure those people from Wisconsin don't get you. The cheeseheads are a dangerous lot. But ultimately, this is a way to think of things in the future that could be a lot more peaceful, and I think a lot happier in a lot of ways. And that was kind of one of the goals that I wanted to accomplish with this. And I will say, for the purposes of those who are up north, if you're curious, I was not lazy at all. I want you to see what I did with Canada because it's really not that different. And those lines are not perfect, but I mean, because Canada I need a little more help with. But I pretty much got it figured out where people live over there. And I want to thank some people, my friend Sebastian from Quebec who did it, Yerbals from Alberta who managed to suffer through talking about the East. And we also had some help from some people in Ontario who helped a little bit. And I did part of it myself. But you can see the Maritimes are pretty much the same. Quebec splits up into 5 or 6 provinces, as does Ontario. Manitoba only has 1.2 million, 1.3 million people. So really that big empty area up top. And I just sort of wedged none of it into 2 different things. Labrador got annexed to Quebec in this because it really doesn't make a lot of sense. That northern Quebec province is heavily influenced by Native Americans, Inuits, and I'm sure that could be worked out very happily. So you can actually see what is out there, and that this is literally the way you could do it. And so people say, well, why do you invest so much time in this? Because everyone has this idea we're going to get into a fight. And no one has any idea what we're going to do once we get into the fight. No one has this vision of what politically is necessary. You're like, okay, we're going to fight. Well, why are we fighting? I can tell you what the government form needs to look like. I can tell you what liberties we need to defend. I can tell you what systems need to move away. I can tell you who needs to lose power. I can tell you who needs to gain power. And I can tell you where logical lines are so that we don't fight each other for all eternity. So when I do this stuff, it seems very abstract until people say, whoa, Tom knew what he was talking about because I think a couple steps ahead. I'm thinking about how we have a stable North America. And that's a question that we need to figure out because we don't have that right now. We are on the verge of maybe going down and making us all into one massive Yugoslavia. So I think that's one of the things that's really something worth knowing. And that's why I spend so much time on all of this. And I worked on all the little things and all the little maps and all those little details so that you have an opportunity to see that because I looked at the demography of it. I looked at the economics of it, and that's what you need. You need to be able to live differently. Like, and I'll just use Maine as a microcosm. Like people down in Portland think they're doing things that are environmentally friendly when they say you can't go into the forest and it's all a park. But when you go into northern Maine, if you literally wouldn't cut down the forest on a regular basis, you wouldn't have the healthy forest you have because it's sustained by people who live there. And it's a little bit of knowledge and a whole lot of ignorance. It's the heart of the problem we deal with in the United States. That's what cancel culture is. It's people who go to college who don't learn information. They learn a shortcut technique for trying to process information, and having that lack of depth of wisdom or knowledge or even faith at all in their culture or anything else beyond that. They just go ahead and they do what they're sort of programmed to do. They look for a happy stimulus response and they go out and they attack things and they destroy things and they don't have a vision of it. And even when they try to save things, they literally wreck things because they don't know what they're doing. It's like that person who offers to help you who you know is going to break everything. You just can't accept that, but yet we've made that a virtue for our civilization and our society. And I think if we don't get away from that very quickly, we're going to have a lot of problems. And it's frustrating to me. And I'm sure it's frustrating to many of you also. So we'll end up seeing what happens in that. Okay. Let's see what all you got here. I'm just reading your questions here. Why are they postponing the Maxwell trial until 2021? Best theory I've heard on that is the reason they don't want to have the trial now is because if they did, they couldn't use the threat of what she would say as blackmail to get certain people in powerful positions to do certain things. DWR, good to see you. Catching the tall end. Hope you're well and your family's well. God bless. God bless to you too. Hope all is well with you. May the Lord be with you. Who else we got here? Do you think it is important the police be notified widely this is a communist revolution we're going through? The police know. The police know. I mean, beyond the white shirts, the rank and file know this is a disaster. A lot of them are stepping down. A lot of them are preparing to leave. They understand the danger of it. And, even in New York, I reported on this a little bit. The New York peace officer to replace the New York police officer. Imagine the political commissars. In Russia, that's what they had. They had political police that were separate from the regular police. So as the police step down, you're going to see these towns, like if you live in Minneapolis, you're going to see thought police literally go around, and these people are going to be put out there to replace them. Now, they won't be called that. They'll be called community police representatives or community liaisons, but they will probably have the power to prosecute if you commit thought crimes. If you're guilty of hate speech, you will be working against the interests of the community. Or they may use the pandemic itself. You see that couple in West Virginia, or not West Virginia, in Kentucky, who was locked down, and they had ankle bracelets assigned to them to keep them in quarantine. That was required of them. I mean, is that a trend we want to be okay with? And the thing about it is we have so many wrong reports on this virus in terms of false reports of people being sick or healthy. And look, I'm not condoning people being irresponsible, but when the people in charge are irresponsible, how do you believe? I can give you good analysis. I'm unstable about things keeps buzzing in and out. Dane, is it working okay? All right. Well, I apologize. I'm being very, very still, so hopefully that will help. It's funny when I talk about certain things, I get in trouble, right? But what I was telling you is the mainstream media lies to you about a lot of things, and I can prove the lies. It wouldn't take much effort. So can you. And so I don't know what to believe. In the science, I want to believe the science. And I do believe physicians are trying to solve the problem. But, it's like dancing with shadows, right? I mean, if you're looking at things certain ways, it's going to be really hard to go ahead and go forward. And I've seen that so many times the data they get isn't good, and that's the problem. Very smart people, I'm not suggesting there's a conspiracy where all the doctors are in on it. I don't think that's the case at all. But look how the Lancet was fooled. Look how the New England Journal was fooled. They were fooled by having bad information at bad times. And it's very easy to launch bad information, and it's very hard to prove where that is. So that's why you have to always check what you think you know on paper versus what you see in reality. And that's one of the things that I've hopefully, if you didn't learn it already, I've kind of tried to train people to do that. And I think we've gotten a lot better at it. But as we've gone through this, we've really learned some really difficult things. What else we got? Do I think information about survival skills would be important? Because what if we lose our internet? I think having a mind towards survival would be very important. I think that, to be honest with you, if you don't know how to be Rambo, don't think you're going to start tomorrow. It just doesn't work that way. Instead, I would think of what you actually need to do to survive and try to develop the ability to do it more in more scenarios. I think that's a more reasonable way to develop it. I mean, Dane and I have been moving into the prepper lifestyle for years now. I mean, literally, we probably started in earnest our move during the Ebola crisis back in, what was that, 14, 15? Something like that. And what does it matter? I mean, we didn't really become full hardcore preppers, but it was just the idea that we wanted to be more aware of things. And so what is survival preparedness all about? It's developing skill sets that you can use that are essential to what you're doing. For instance, we garden a lot of plants that are not necessarily super productive to us. We have one or two of them. Why do we do that? Number one, so we can understand how to use the plant. Number two, so we can have seed stock to grow more of the plant if we like the plant. And number three, just because it's kind of cool. So you can do things like that. So you have to figure out what works for you, what your basic needs are, what your essential needs are, and be very honest about what survivability means to you if you're in a place. And the problem I think people get into is they assume that we live in a world where money's going to have meaning and where social credit works through that process. The minute people start shooting, money's going to be absolutely worthless because if you look at your dollar bill, it's based on the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, if you don't have faith in the United States government, you don't have credit in your dollar bill. And I think that's one of the problems that's out there with fiat money in general. But of course, this happened, and this happened after World War I, actually, where you saw not just Germany, but Austria and a bunch of other countries, Belgium, their economies just tanked because their currency went to nothing. And so, what would I say in terms of survivability? Are you looking for information? I think that you don't really need information with a bunch of survival skills. I think that you need to practice your preps to know the basic things you want to know to survive, and then just have references for them. And it's okay to make things simple. You can't prepare for everything. Find someone who has skill sets you don't. It's a much more reasonable way. There's a thought in the preparedness community of these lone wolf preppers who are going to try to do everything and anything. And there's probably a few people who can Bear Grylls it and come close to pulling it off. But honestly, your biggest preparedness you can have is a functional community. And, you should try to find that. One place that's really good to do that is within churches, especially if you're a believer. You'll find that a lot of communities do that. If not, there are different civic options you can take a look at and, figure out a way. Even if you're in this community, if someone can help you, we'll try to figure out some ways going forward. But it is a challenge, but it's a great question, Susan. Thank you for asking it. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's have a little drink here. We need a 1930s German-style recovery plan. The 1930s, actually, the Dawes plan, it's interesting. So I studied how Germany kind of got out of their mess. What they did was they took a bunch of American loans, essentially, and then they decided they were just going to deflate on them and go to a new mark because they took the loans to get the infrastructure. That's what the Germans actually did. And then they decided to go a different way with it. And everyone, not just the Germans were first, but they weren't. Actually, the Soviets were probably first, to be more honest. But they realized the way out of the economic crisis that was caused in the 1920s was to go ahead and militarize. And that's what you're going to see government do now. Don't be surprised if you don't see us in a war with China before the end of the year, because it justifies the sort of spending. And plus, it makes people feel good about the country. If you feel lousy about your life, what's better than punching someone else in the mouth? And that's something America does a lot, actually. It's kind of a sad thing. And I'm not saying it because I love China. I would love to see that regime gone. Communism is a blight on humanity. Nonetheless, the way and reason they're going about it's the same usual cynical reason. I think we should be honest about that. Let's see. Susan says, shouldn't we be thinking about an airtight wood stove for heat if we lose power permanently? It's a great choice, man. I mean, all right. So here is your hierarchy of needs, in my opinion. When it comes to survivability. Number one is water. Do you have access to a fresh water supply? If not, you better solve that question. And you better have a filtration plan. It's very good. Number two is going to be probably food, at least to some extent. You're going to need to feed yourself. Can you provide enough for 1,200 calories a day? 2,000 is a lot better. Think about that question and what you can grow, what you can have around you, how you can do it. Even if you have to eat rice and beans is a lot better than nothing. So, number three is the question you ask about heat. I think it's absolutely smart to have multiple ways of heat. I'll just tell you, for instance, here, our primary, we have an oil furnace, which would be sufficient for pretty much, we could get through a whole winter if we had to off of it, because it's separate from any other thing, and I make sure I keep that thing full. But we do have secondary propane backup if we need that. And if we needed to, even though our house isn't set up for it, it would be very easy. And I already have access to one if I wanted for tertiary heat through a wood stove, or quaternary heat through, we could just do it through space heaters or other efforts. So yeah, it would be good to have things, and not being so dependent on electricity is probably a good spot to be in, if you can do that. I don't think people are ready for that at all, but I think one thing people should be ready for is a very cold winter. And I mean that in the sense, if there's any brownouts, power outages, other issues that occur, you should have warm clothing and ways to keep yourself warm regardless of what your environment is, or if you have to be on the move, because you don't know if you're going to be safe where you're at. I mean, you really just don't. I mean, you'd like to think so. I mean, like, I'd like to think I am where I am, but, who knows? We'll see. It's a great question, though. I think everyone needs to think about getting a ham radio's operator's license. Bob is absolutely right. It's definitely something smart to do, and it's something I should do. And if I wasn't so busy doing all this other stuff, you would think of all the time I spend on radio, I would want to do that. So maybe people would be able to listen. But unfortunately, I have not. But it's really been good. Have I had? Okay, let's see. Bone broth. Good to see you here. And I guess I'm in Region 1, right? People say these things. So good to see you, McLean. McLean! Anyways, good to see you, brother. Glad you're here. FEMA Region 7 in Iowa, so that's it. Someone, whoever's in charge of FEMA should put me in charge of Region 1. I'd be good at it, man. They should give me a region. I'd be really good at this. Mad as hello. That's clever, man. I like that one. Wishing you both well. Enjoy hearing your take on things. Glad you're here, Mad as hello. That's clever, man. I like it. It takes a tribe. Absolutely does, Sam. You're right. Lyle, good you're here, brother. Hope all is well out there. I know where you're at. Glad you've made it here. I've gotten a bunch about ancient nutrition. You guys are talking about food. That sounds good. If you lose heat in real winter and become reliant on wood, you spend your whole day gathering wood to stay warm through a winter all summer. True. It is true that there are problems that you probably want to get. If you do have a wood stove, I would suggest getting a couple cords of wood, depending on how warm it gets. I think there's some places that are probably warmer than Bemidji, but who's saying anything, you know? But yeah, up here, we're fortunate. We get a lot of precipitation in the winter. It doesn't usually go too much below zero. It's kind of like in the 25 to 0 range, which isn't too bad realistically. Let's see here. By refusing to acknowledge the nightly BLM violence in Portland, the mainstream media is complicit in turning American streets into war zones. Yeah, I agree with you, John. And you have to look who owns the media and what their intentions are. I think that, and I want to say for those who aren't listening yet, who really, I mean, I think most of you have access to one of these links, but you probably don't have access to both of them. So let me share this with you as a reminder. So the Free Atlantic Radio stuff, that's my work here. But we've been bringing in some other voices that are interesting. Some of these guys are more radical than I am, and that's okay because we kind of have fun with that. This is Free Atlantic Voices at Castos, and we have people who every week put things out. My friend Kanaz Phylan goes ahead and he does a show where he kind of touches with things from a Christian spiritual perspective. He's a Catholic guy, but we won't hold it against him. All joking aside. It really does a good job letting you know some of the issues of why cancel culture's gone nuts. My other friend, John Q. Publius, does a fantastic job of telling you who runs these organizations. And if you ever have a question about an organization, by the way, the guy is one of the most brilliant researchers I've ever met. He makes me look like a lazy bum, and I don't say that lightly. So that is something that's very good. And if there are other people, you know, as this project goes forward, here's the reality of it. You can listen to me talk all day, and I'll talk. It's fine. I'll go do things. But one of the things that I would really recommend is that if you want to have a larger voice in this, not only, you know, copy things, we can make little things with the kinds and lines, you know, a little flag behind it. You can share the ideas, share the books, share the programming, but feel free to be a voice of your own, man. I mean, that's one of the things. You need to be part of your own solution because you can either be a subject or you can be a citizen. And, you know, one of the things about the New Atlantic Project here that we're trying to do with Atlantic Nationhood is to build people into being actual citizens where we're invested in lives, we do things meaningfully, and we try to make the world a better place. And we do that through action. And there's not a lot of people who do that, to be honest. There's a very few people who are willing to do that, and they're willing to go out there. Some of them we see in the streets every day in Portland are not covered, but you can find them not on YouTube, but maybe on DLive. And the media is enabling them. But where are the good men and women who are going to step up? You know, I can do a lot, and I'm willing to do a lot. I'm willing to pay whatever price is necessary, but ultimately people are going to have to decide what they're willing to do. So let's see here. And Lyle's got, if you kill a deer, you can put fat on the wood and make it burn longer like a candle. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, you'd have fat, right? So that makes a lot of sense. But I imagine most people here have never done butchery or slaughtering. I have. It's a gruesome thing, man. I mean, I don't know. You want your stories about that? I had my Indian bravery test, essentially, where I killed and slaughtered and butchered a rabbit. And I you know, it's interesting how fast life turns to meat if you work at it. And I imagine for people who look at things a certain way, that's the way it has to be. But it's weird. Taking life, even from an animal, I won't even speak to people who've been through something more profound than that, but it is a moment that really is sacred almost, and it's a unique experience. If you haven't experienced it, you're missing something of what it is. And I'm not saying you should necessarily do it, but if you eat meat, if you don't eat meat, I guess it doesn't apply to you. But if you eat meat and you've never at least once understood the process by which it comes, I think you'll have a greater appreciation of how things actually work if you do the whole process. And I mean, obviously hunting, fishing, all that's fine. But what I mean more is like if you actually go and you kill something with your own hands, or through your own means, into your hands necessarily. I guess you can use a projectile. But if you do it and then you take it from life to table, and you realize that it's not just sport, but it's literally life sustaining for your family. You realize in a very meaningful way how life and death are intertwined in a way that maybe others don't quite appreciate, who just cavalierly go through life and think things appear. There's a terrible cost involved in all the comforts we enjoy. And just because you're not the one paying it doesn't mean it's not out there. And I think that, if you want to go through life gratefully and appreciative, you literally have to go out there sometimes and be willing to get your hands dirty. And, I was willing to do that. And it wasn't the most comfortable experience of my life, but I got through it. They thought I wouldn't do it, and I did it because I do things. That's how it is. And I felt a little queasy. I'll own that. But I went ahead and did it because I felt like it was something I needed to do. And I used it, and I cooked it, and I ate it, and I appreciated it. And, it was fed by me, and then it fed me. And that was okay. And that's the way it goes. I don't know. Nature is a funny thing. It's one of our values. And one of the things you learn about nature is nature doesn't waste things. Nature is appreciative of what's out there. You realize that if you're a gardener. We were talking about Cicero and his gardens earlier. And the idea is that, everything is out there. It's amazing you realize how the ecosystem develops so quickly, right? Like literally, I can understand why people believe like Lamarck, because there's all sorts of creepies and crawlers and critters that come into where we are. You wouldn't expect, like, all these things where it's just a little grass in the backyard you'd mow, and now there's this whole life system that exists there that goes back and forth of things eating things and other things. And you see it's kill or be killed, and life is tenacious, but it's also beautiful. I mean, it's a dance against time that we are fighting as bravely as we can. And I think that when you understand that, and you understand the limitations of life, of what eternal life is and what temporary life is, you become able to dance as well. I mean, right now we dance with blinders on and clodhoppers because we don't believe in anything. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't believe in our culture. We don't believe in our civilization, and we don't believe in God. We want to believe, some of us don't, but we don't actually believe. There was a really good sermon in my church this week. It was talking about faith and how you have to actually believe it. And something I kind of say indirectly, but he said it in a little more biblical sense, and resonated with me, is it's not enough to want to believe something. You have to believe something so much that you act like your life depends on it. And we don't act that way. So when it comes to survival, you have to believe in yourself. But when it comes to survival for a civilization, you also have to believe in yourself. You can't have a civilization that just destroys itself and attacks itself and says, we were bad to this group, we were bad. We don't have any faith in ourselves. And I have faith. And I honestly think 2,000 guys, 3,000, 10,000, maybe even 1,000, maybe even 100 guys who actually believed and would stand up would be enough, because everything would blow over like a breeze. People don't have conviction anymore. They don't. We have convicts, not conviction. People don't believe that there's a higher purpose or a better cause, or that there are things worth fighting for. And I do. I mean, I've paid the price for that. And that's how I look at it. So, let's see. Laos's first time. So we're talking about, all right, let's go back here because I went back a little bit. FAR is leading the frontal assault against the lies and disinformation. I'm trying, man. Planning to return to college this fall, you may get a flu shot. Flu shots don't work, by the way. They're always for the wrong strain. And like they only work like 12% of the time. I'm not even kidding. You can look it up. Kentucky, I know hunting is a requirement. Probably hunting and shining, right? Moonshine over there. Do I recommend taking the course? Okay, you guys are talking about the course in class. If Bob doesn't answer you, Kim, by the way, I'll answer you on that. I have heard from people who passed the test, the best way to do it is to take the test questions. You can take sample test questions over and over again for ham radio, and you'll get much better at it. Let's see. Yeah, it is very shocking to go ahead and turn an animal into all its productive uses. I agree with that. You can do a lot with it, though. Let's see. Hopefully you haven't covered this and I'm not late. Do you have any take on the black militia coming up in Louisville? They say they're bringing 15,000. I'm sure they're funded by some lefty. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, people have the right to form militias. I'm not going to say they don't have the right to do that. And if they decide they want to try to take over a town, it'd be interesting to see if the people of Kentucky let them. They might. I mean, if they do, then that will start the Civil War, and it will be a race war, because if you have all black militias that are going around saying they own areas of territory, it won't be long before white people make that same decision. And if that happens, yeah, I mean, I think it'll get ugly, and I think it'll get real ugly down south quick. Because, I mean, what are you going to do? Is the federal government, I mean, Bashir, All right, so this is interesting. Brashear being a Democrat in Kentucky isn't going to do a damn thing about it. That's a given. And I assume Louisville has a Democratic mayor, but I don't know. I'm going to guess that's the case. So Trump theoretically sends something in there, and you're just going to have a bigger blow up. And that's why what's interesting is every one of these moves that the left is funding is designed to get the government into a war against its own people. And it's kind of been amazing that it hasn't happened yet. And you have to ask why they're doing that. Because, I mean, historically, when those things happen, usually you would expect for the first people to go out there, it's not going to end very well. And given the general constituency of Kentucky, I would suspect that while they might be able to take Louisville, it would not be long before Louisville would be surrounded successfully by the people of Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, who probably are a lot less sympathetic to a black militia taking over their city. But then you will see other people go through riots in Chicago. You can predict how this would all go. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if they try to set up a chop like that and it's really not opposed in any way, shape, or form. I mean, here seems to be where the rubber hits the road. And just my observation from what's happened. It seems like the silent majority is willing to let cities burn because they hate them anyway. But if it comes to the suburbs, it will become a fight. So this will be interesting. So it won't be a question of occupy Louisville, right? It would have to be somewhere else. Like I'll take a look here. I don't know. I've been to Louisville like 4 or 5 times. It's been a very long time. But if it became, and I don't know who lives where, but if you was occupy Shepherdsville or occupy Shelbyville or occupy LaGrange or Mount Washington or any of these towns that appear to be surrounded, or what is it? Maybe Clarksville, Indiana. You guys would have to tell me. I don't know which are the nice suburbs and which are the ones that people don't like going to. But if you saw something like that, or if you saw instead of occupy Boston, it would be occupy Cape Cod, things might be a little different, or occupy Westchester County, if you're in the New York area, or the Villanova if you're in Philadelphia, Mount Lebanon if you're in Pittsburgh, different areas. So, what would you say? What would be the place? Orchard Park, maybe, if you get outside Buffalo, something like that. Name your city, whatever. There's places outside. If you went past Auburn and Lewiston in Maine, same thing. So ultimately, all these sort of things. I mean, do I have any take on black militias? I don't know. It's interesting. I do have a thought. If I would be willing to have this conversation, but I'm getting a lot of trouble for saying this. If blacks collectively, genuinely, totally feel like they cannot succeed and do not want to be part of American, Western, white civilization, European, whatever you want to call it, and they need their own place, I am okay with them having their own place. I think that it's a very mature, sensitive conversation needs to have. They're not going to get everything they want, but no one ever would say, and I don't want to offend anyone who lives there, but you could pick a place. I have an idea where, you'd probably pick the place where they have the highest density and say, okay, this is your place, roll with it, see what happens. Now, I know if you tried to do that, given that those places have a lot of people who feel entirely the opposite, that they'll fight over the land. And specifically, I'll just tell you, it's deep south. It's that belt between about Louisiana and Georgia. Where it would be the most pronounced. And that's one of the reasons why with the Free Atlantic Project, we don't even try to go into the South. I do think the South is eventually going to be very ugly, very hostile, very angry. I would suggest to my white and black brothers down there that absent Christianity, you're going to have a very hard time getting along well. And one of the things that's a problem is a lot of the black militia are not Christian. They're either atheistic or Islamic. And if you insert culture and religion wars on top of race wars, well, that's what I thought would happen in the coming Civil War, but then it's going to get very ugly, and I suspect no quarter will be given and no quarter will be accepted. And if that happens, then, we end up with an absolute bloodbath, and, you make your own presumptions about what happens. I'm not going to war game that war for you, but you could probably make a couple intelligent guesses. Who knows? I'm not going to war game a war I think has a very high probability of happening because we may need to survive that. But I would say this, if that in fact becomes an issue, you probably want to be around people who know you and you can trust. And that's especially true if you're someone who doesn't necessarily fit, the look of the crowd you like to hang with. And that's really unfortunate. And I think that's going to be a much bigger problem in the South than other places. Just my experience of having spent some time down there. What are you doing, Lovey? You just visiting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to figure out what bit me.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not having very much luck. I think it was a tick.
Oh, I hope not. All right. So farm to table. Grew up doing that. Nothing like naming a cow only to butcher it. Felt really crappy. As like, what are you doing?
What?
Okay. Don't hit your. Be careful.
Oh,
all right. Feel.
That hurt really bad.
I believe you. Feel. Let's see. Feel. Was it felt really crappy as a kid naming a cow? Grandpa said never to name them. You know, in the old days, up until about the early 1800s, people generally didn't name their kids till they were 2 or 3 years old because the death rate was so high. That way you didn't feel so bad because you couldn't remember what to name them. There's power in names for things. There really is. I love Kentucky. Went to the art counter in the Creation Museum out there. That would be interesting.
Got this really long eyebrow hair right here that's like silver.
Nah, it's because I'm getting old.
I'm not even kidding. It's like 2 inches long.
Okay. Thank you, Lovey. I'm sure people want to hear about my grooming habits.
All right, I'll trim it for you.
All right. Well, thank you. Up close to Cincy. So let's see. Is that where the Huge Nose Ark is? Hey, I'm in Mount Washington. See, there you go, Joseph. I guess I didn't even know where there was. Fossil said I used to give radio exams that I would recommend studying first. It isn't hard, but there's a bunch of stuff to know. Okay, she goes to a ham. Won't happen. Codependent. I live in South Louisiana. Civil War. Yeah, I mean the South. I'll just tell you. All right, so I'll wargaming for the South because I'm not going to talk about the North because I live there, and I've learned Yankees don't talk about Southerners. But if it goes down there. Not really. I don't think so. Unless you want to grab my little Slavic outfit over there, that'd be.
I'm not putting that thing on.
It's warm.
That white linen thing?
Yeah.
It's linen.
So?
Linen's not warm. Linen's cool.
Well, I don't look in there. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's clothes on.
I have really bad chills.
I don't know, dear. I'm busy doing a show right now. You may have noticed. Just go back in one of those things. Go dig around back there. Anyway.
It's really cold.
Anyway, so the wife is cold. Anyway, so, but I don't know how she's cold. It's boiling hot in here, but she probably has sun.
No, I think it's probably because I'm taking a bunch of immune herbs.
Okay, well, you're taking it. So they want me to talk about the South and what's going to happen down there. So let's look at the South. So the most important map for the South is, let's just look at it. I'm going to bring up a map. We're going to do this together. 1 second here. Images. 1 second here. I'm actually answering you guys' questions, so give me a second here. Because we're going to look at it.
What are you doing?
They want to know what a civil war would look like in the South. That's the map, isn't it? You always need to know the map. That's the map. So that is the map that presents the amount of, this is the amount of population that's black in a given area. And no, it's not quite as simple as that, but it kind of is in a lot of ways. Because if, let's say you're right, and then what happens in Louisville, and I would note if you look at Louisville on this map, this is a U.S. map, by the way, and you might notice that the northeastern nation, you'll see where I drew those lines were, with the exception of the state of Virginia. We really don't have any big densities of high black population outside the major cities like Chicago, New York, and whatnot. But that you have a deep black population along the Mississippi River, which has been there for time immemorial. You have this through that belt of central Alabama into Mississippi, through Georgia, up through into Charlotte, through different parts of South Carolina, and heavy concentration in northeastern North Carolina and southwestern Virginia. So those are the areas that probably be working in alliance to some extent with where the college towns are. And that belt kind of works the same way. So you can kind of see where the war would go through, that you'd basically have, if it came to it, you would probably have whites that were in the northern parts of Arkansas and in Tennessee overwhelmingly, perhaps with help from Kentucky, and the western parts of North Carolina, because I know a lot of them have fled from Atlanta to Chattanooga, and from Chattanooga points north, as well as the Gulf portion where you have people in like Pensacola, Jacksonville, where you have a lot of your quote-unquote redneck whites. That would be sort of the lines in there. And what would happen is you would like to think you could have a peaceful split where you would say, okay, this group of people gets this amount, this group of people gets that amount, but I know my daddy's daddy didn't fight for that, and I understand all these issues. So ultimately, because it kind of works better if I know where they live. I've spent a lot of time down south. You tend to have blacks live in the swampier areas and whites live in the hilly areas. If you could split it that way, you all would be happy. But you like to fight, I get it. That's what's going to happen. All I would suggest is don't go north of the 36th parallel. That's Atlantic territory, and we don't want any of your stupidity. So that's a quick glimpse at, and look, if you know the right map to look at, you can kind of figure out a lot of what would happen. And that will even go into Texas a little bit too, because eastern Texas is a lot darker than it used to be, especially with all the people who came from Houston, from New Orleans, and you have sort of that Gulf belt around there. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong and who's win and who'd lose. Ultimately, I think it's a tragedy that these are the places that they're out there that are going to have these issues. But I think, what are you doing?
I need to put my elbow here.
Anyway, so those are some of the things here that I think could become problems. And I'm not saying they will, but I will say that. What about California? All right, well, let's see California. California doesn't have a black belt.
Okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm trying to figure out what.
I think if we're going to talk about California, we got to look at the Hispanic map, right? No, California is a little bit harder. California's got a couple different countries in it. I don't know. I've heard in a lot of other things that I should put this here. What I've heard about California is that you have a lot of help from the gangs and from the cartels in support of the governor there. So, Governor Newsom. Why are you laughing? How am I supposed to do a serious show?
I'm sorry. I'm reading about fire ants, and no, seriously, and my brain put it together as fart. I'm sorry.
So for the people in California worrying about living beyond the fire ants and farts here from Miss Flatulence.
Hey, I'm not the only one with dyslexia here. There's one of yins, Brian, John, or Joseph. One of yins has
California
dyslexia.
Does not make up 70% of our economy, but 70% of our trade goods pass through California. That's where that quote comes from, because we get a lot off the Pacific coast. That's one of the problems you have with California. So let's talk about California. California's got a lot of problems. Dave, if you want to listen to California's issues, you should listen to Dave Hodges' Common Sense podcast. He loves talking about Newsom. But short version is California's bankrupt. They ran out of money, and in fact, they were trying to borrow money from the Chinese. And remember those masks they were supposed to get? They never popped up. They were trying to get money in there. And supposedly, the cartels have been given sort of carte blanche to cause problems when they want to. They're just holding back for the time being because they're letting things light up in Portland. But apparently, what you would expect is you would expect the coastal cities to stand against the Central Valley if things go down. I mean, the Bay Area predictably is going to be a nightmare. And Los Angeles will be a problem. What will end up happening? I don't know, but I do think that California on the West Coast would go ahead and they would get a lot of support from China and other powers. And I think that, just like I reported during Coronavirus Central, you may very well, especially if things start getting hotter, see the West Coast ask for help from first the UN, and then under the guise of the UN, get additional support from external powers to go ahead and seek separation from the rest of the United States. Because the United States, the truth is, California does provide much of the agriculture. It is a key economic element. The Port of Long Beach specifically, a lot of our trade goods come in. And as you've noticed, the war between China and America getting bigger and bigger, part of what we are dealing with is a cultural war method where China is trying to separate California from the U.S. in the same way the U.S. kind of placed Taiwan and Hong Kong against China. So this is not an uncommon strategy you see, and that's one of the problems that you're going to have over and over again. But keep an eye on California running out of money. It's going to be a major problem when they can't pay their bills and no one's there to help pay their debts. You might see radicalization happen at that point, and you might see a natural disaster. A lot of people have been keeping an eye on the Oroville Dam, and they think that's something that might get blown to go ahead and get federal disaster money, and daring Trump not to do things. Because Trump's sort of in this impossible position where he's basically being asked to do all sorts of crazy things. And from what I've heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, it's just a rumor, but I'll share it with you, is that he's being shaken down, saying that you're not going to be able to survive if you don't get us into a war with China. So all the decisions are bad decisions, but it's a tough road to hoe in California. I think that it's going to be very difficult for the people who live there. I would say that if you're in California, I would not want to be in the Bay Area. I would not want to be near Los Angeles, and I probably wouldn't want to be near San Diego. Yeah, brush fires, forest fires, absolutely. I mean, the opportunities for terrorism indirectly through environmental actions are absolutely huge. There's many of them. It's a shame. It's a beautiful state. There's a lot of things to like about California. None of them involve the people, save for those who are here listening to our show tonight. I'm just kidding. The rest of the world looks at California. The rest of this country looks at California and says, "What the hell's wrong with you people?" But you elect these people, and I guess it's a changing demography. A lot of people tell me California was lost when Prop 187 was killed by the California Supreme Court, and that was the one that would have allowed them to not give benefits to illegals. But now you can't do that, and I understand that at this point there's a massive disconnect between what happens on the ground. What I would suggest, I mean, if you're curious about it, if you really like it, there's a guy named Paul Preston. He does something called the New California Movement. I think that is one of the things that you might want to take a look at in terms of reclaiming it. But I will say one of the other things is, and I've talked to some guys who told me this, is there were people who tried to stand up and they got railroaded in the courts, and basically for speaking out, they got imprisoned. And this is the same thing that happened to the alt-right at Charlottesville, happened to people who were speaking up for their constitutional rights in California. They've retreated from California. So California has been left to the worst of people there to take advantage of the good people who've tried to remain and make it work. I would suggest that it's not the worst idea to move away from there, but that's your own choice. I will say if you go to Idaho, the people are sick of having you up there. I just saw that. Dana must be from Pittsburgh. Is she a Yinzer? That's so funny that you recognize it. My wife is in fact a Yinzer. You're correct. Patches O'Houlihan asked that. So we had this great. I trolled the hell out of my wife. Let me tell you what I did. So I actually, do we have the envelope, dear? Can you bring me the envelope? Oh, it's downstairs. Can you bring me a piece of paper? No. Well, come on.
I don't know where there is any up here.
There's got to be something. Is there an envelope, something by my thing anywhere?
All it's by your.
Is there anything behind me that I can write on that's not?
Your thing is Kleenexes.
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm sorry, there's no paper.
All right. We'll do it a different way.
But there's plenty of tissue there.
Okay, we'll do it a different way. We're gonna play a little game. We're gonna play the game I played with my wife, and we'll see if you can win.
Who's asking me from you?
We're gonna ask. We're gonna play the game.
What gave it away?
We're gonna play a little game here.
What was it that gave it away? Isn't that obvious? He says that it is.
It is, of course, it's obvious. Okay, so we're gonna play a little game here. I'm gonna post a picture now, and I'm gonna give you it.
This is so mean.
It's not mean.
Yes, it is.
It screwed me. Did you see that? I tried posting a picture.
Well, that's because you were being mean to me. You got what you deserved.
This is terrible. I can't do it because I was trying to post an image link and it posted 9,000 characters of gibberish.
That serves you right, trying to troll me.
I wasn't trying to troll. Okay, maybe I was trying to troll you, but that's fine. All right, we're gonna just do this here.
That's so ignorant.
We're gonna do Dana. Talk to the crowd for 1 second so I can do this.
Me to talk to the crowd?
Just say something. Keep them busy for a minute.
I got bit by something. I woke up this morning. I don't know what it is, but it looks like a bullseye. I hope it wasn't a tick.
Let's see this.
But I honestly don't know, which is why I'm looking at pictures of bug bites right now.
So I'm going to ask you to identify what this is. I'm going to show you a picture. I made a drawing that is representing this picture. And I'm going to tell you your answer has to be this many letters. What would you call this? You have a link there. So you can tell me what it is. And I'll show the wife so she can see what it is. She's going to make a face, but she's not going to tell you what it is. Because we're going to talk about this. This is an important topic. And this is the topic of the day here. Because this actually ended up being a... All right. So Joseph says it's a cart. We'll see what other people say before we confirm or deny the answers. I might give people time for the slower there. Some of you might be on a modem. You remember that? Okay, so DWR says it's a shopping cart. Joseph says it's a cart.
You already know.
Spread violence. That's what they exist to do. That if you remember, because violence leads to outcomes politically. Lee, we'll come to that in 1 second. Future suitcase. All right, so people are having a little fun. So the correct answer, by the way, is in fact that it is a cart. However, I made it real easy because I made a bet with my wife that she had to, if she got this wrong, that she would have to make me her meatloaf for dinner. And I'm like, I'm going to give you a picture.
I told you
stop.
I told you I would do it anyway.
I was going to give her the picture. Sorry, but that should be 5 letters. Oh, you have people.
Do I have somebody? Yes! Yes, I'm not insane. See, it's not just me. It's not just me.
beat up
It's a
over here.
buggy.
It's not a buggy.
Yes,
so,
it
so,
is.
and I made this real easy for her because I put 4 things under it so that she'd know. Because I know that she would call it a buggy. She would, in fact, call it a buggy. She also calls a vacuum a sweeper.
Yes, I do, and
So-
that's what it's supposed to be called.
Yeah, by you, and you call bologna jumbo, and you
No, I
literally.
don't.
All right, I'll give you another
Do I?
example. No, well, sometimes.
I never, because I don't.
Here's
eat
another
bologna.
one that she does though. This is a Pittsburgh special. So if something was wet and slick, what would you assume the word? What would you call something you would slip on as an adjective? What would be? Don't answer. What would you call something you would slip on as an adjective? Any guess? Any guesses from the intelligent people in the audience here in the Free Atlantic Nation? She does not call couch a Davenport. She does call soda a pop. But that's a split on the Appalachian mountain line. So anyone know what the adjective for something that is slippery slopes? That's not what we hear from my wife, the dope. I'm just kidding.
You want me to keep beating
No, I don't want to get beaten up.
Man.
You kidding? This will get banned for domestic violence.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I mean, because you
That's what you get for trolling.
So, as it turns out, explain to them what the proper word is.
It's slippy. It's slippy. SLIPPY.
Slidey. Someone tried to get it right, so no one could even guess that one. So you had buggy
slippy.
believers, but
It's slippy. My mother even said that it was slippy on the phone the other day.
Well, I'm not going to question. I'm not going to question Lisa. She used to know that, but yeah, no, it was not.
That's what it is.
But people, there are regionalisms, and this is one of the interesting things. Like in Arizona, they call it a rough, not a roof, or they got, or like some people would say instead of saying root, they say root, or what is it?
Rut.
It's hard to say it wrong.
Some people say rut. Some people say rut.
Yeah, some people say it wrong. I don't know. Up here in Upper New England, they call it rubbish and not trash. It's interesting. It's one of those weird things.
Brilliant, but rubbish.
It is brilliant. It's daft. There's
I never said clicker. Clicker drives me crazy, actually. Like if you say give me a clicker, like
you want to know a really weird one. So you know a drinking fountain, a water fountain in Milwaukee that's called a bubbler. Yeah, that's why people look at you when you say buggy.
You're so mean.
Oh, Tom
I don't feel good. You're being mean to me.
I'm not being mean to you. I'm having fun. Do you guys have any other weird ones you want to share? Where maybe we should have regionalism night from True Atlantic Radio here. Figure out what other things we say.
Blubber.
Funny. What is? I don't know what a schiffer robe is.
I think that it's like a. It's like that's like an old fashioned dressing gown, right? It's like
maybe.
It's like a chiffon
or like,
with a robe.
But there are things like in the East Coast, there are some weird things. Like in Philly, a sub sandwich is called a hero. And they call tomato sauce, gravy if you're in New York. I know. It's weird.
Gravy's not supposed to be red.
You're telling me.
It's supposed
Forget about it. They don't
to
do that.
Brown.
This is one of those things. I'm frozen. Oh, I don't want to be frozen.
Are you frozen? You're not frozen on.
In New York City, we call a hero a wedge. I've seen that, so that's it. Yeah, there are all these different little phrases for things,
It's making me want pizza really bad.
Do you want pizza? Creek versus Crick. That's absolutely with streetcar bends the corner.
Creek.
So this is it. Yeah, no,
Down
she
the
said.
creek.
Well, that's what was it? The old joke we used to make about Indiana. Cows, cricks, or was it cows, cricks, and corn? That's all there was in Indiana.
Yeah.
That's about all there was, right? Did I miss anything? And Gary. Gary's interesting.
Indiana.
A steak Pittsburgh style. Flat iron, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Pittsburgh
style.
You ever have the Pittsburgh sandwich? It's a coleslaw.
Steak. It is just.
Roof versus rough.
You haven't lived until you've had Pittsburgh style steak.
But we all say where it's wrong, too.
Do you guys know how that came about? It's from the guys in the steel mills. They'd take
They still come red hots up here.
Well, they'd take a big slab of meat and they would throw it like put it on the metal. And
they have those
outside.
They have coal oven pizza in Pittsburgh, which sounds disgusting, but it tastes better than you think. It probably caused you to like it.
Have you ever had a Pittsburgh style steak?
Can I show the picture again? Which picture you want? The buggy, as we're calling it? Sure, I'll show the buggy. Schiffer robe is Southern for dresser. That's crazy. I never heard that in my life. I know what bless your heart means. I know what bless your heart means in Yankee. It means F you. That's what it means. It's so bad, right? What are some other ones that have
on the Schiffer robe thing?
Biscuits. Sometimes biscuits are cookies for some people. But like another one that's weird is like
Crisps.
water, like just the way that people say the word, right? Like in Philadelphia, it's water. In New York, it's water. In Boston, it's water. Did they cover that right? I think that's pretty much how you say it. It's weird. The Northeast has accents, man. It's just you don't hear that
They
when you
just
get
get
inland.
worse as you go
No,
north.
it's like, forget about it. Sully, let's have a lobster bake up your bad habit. The letter R does not exist in
What is
Maine.
a rubber band in Pittsburghese? A gum band.
That's a gum band. Washer versus washer.
It's a gum band.
I don't know Bob's joke. I'd answer it, but I'll probably get the channel plan. So I know one thing is there's a difference between
I've always said washer.
Wisconsin and Wisconsin, and I think the people who live there, if I'm not mistaken, say Wisconsin. That it's Wisconsin. Yeah, as opposed to Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, and don't ever tell people from Illinois that there's an S at the end of their phrase. They get mad. They find it Illinoising. How bad was that?
Horrible pun.
You see what we do? You get the Waldorf and Statler of low-rate YouTube. Ideas. Yeah, no, there's that drawl. Have you guys ever been like for example, Bristol, Tennessee? Have you ever been to the gummy Southern accent? My name Cletus. I came out here. Go wash my hands. Go ahead and get some ham sandwiches. Go get some liquor, some chew tobacco. Go have some. I mean, I don't understand. Like, there was this one guy. He was so enthusiastic. We were at a Bojangles, which if you've never had, it's the southern variant of Bojangles. Is to the south what KFC is to the rest of the country, and the same way that Captain D's is like catfish to the Long John Silver's crap you get elsewhere, right?
There's an anti Long John Silver.
Yeah, there's like a southern Long John Silver's. It's like the ghetto Popeyes version of one. It's called Captain D's. If you go down south,
do they do like Cajun?
Yeah, of course they do. Everything burns you down, and hot sauces on everything. Yeah, you can tell where you are. You're in the South. Here's how you know the difference between the South and the Southwest. You're in the South when hot sauce is the condiment. You're in the Southwest when salsa is the condiment. That's how you can tell. That's honest by God's truth. And you're in Canada when mayo is the condiment. And they put Big Mac sauce on everything. That's gonna be the hardest part to accept about them.
They do.
They do. But McDonald's is nice up there.
But I love their ketchup chips.
I know. You know what? Someone is sending you ketchup chips from Canada.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, we have some of our Canadian friends. Welcome to the Chicago, Illinois area. The local temperature is 23 degrees below zero. Thank you for spending time in the Windy City. How was that?
You just do such a good Dan Aykroyd. You're really good at that.
I'm from Midwest. I was born in Milwaukee. I can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Upper Midwestern.
I do know. So Joseph will have to explain for those who aren't aware the difference between y'all and all y'all, because y'all is like singular plural, and all y'all is a bigger plural.
I actually know that there's a difference.
Yeah, there is an all y'all versus y'all.
And and you say yins or yins guys.
Yins guys. No, the weirdest thing of Pittsburgh speech actually. So is if you guys want me to do, I'll start doing a Chicago character. I'll have to think about how to do it, but. The thing that's weird, so I'll talk like a Yinzer. You want me to talk? You want a Yinzer conversation in front of them? We'll be like the Pittsburghese couple. We lived there. I lived there 10 years.
But it's actually hard for me to do like a really, really like.
We're watching this YouTube garbage in here. The Stillers are on. I don't want to listen to this. I want to listen to Big Ben, and I want to listen to Myron Cope and all this. I don't want to listen. Get me an Orange City. That's what I want. I don't want any of this Baltimore garbage. We aren't going to do that. We're not having... If there's an Atlantic nation and Baltimore's in it, we ain't coming. How was that? Tell me that isn't a perfect Pittsburgher.
No, it's true. Because that's really how...
That's really
how Pittsburghers feel about Baltimore. Like,
I know.
At least they did. Steelers fans.
You can't even enjoy the crabs from Baltimore. And I mean both kinds. You see your neighbor, she went to Ocean City. She came back with more than just being salty, and we know why.
That's gross.
Isn't it? That's
yeah. Don't be degenerate.
Yeah, you're coming down here talking fart jokes. I'll be as
That's
degenerate
not
as I want to be.
degenerate. That's a bodily
Well,
function. And I
Ewins.
couldn't
Ewins
help
is
it.
more than you all. So
my brain just put the two words together, and that's how it came out.
So that's it.
Ewins.
So that's what
no,
it is.
no, actually, no. It's Yin's guys. It's not Ewins.
Ewins. Well, no, they're saying where they're at. It's different in
Oh,
different
'cause
places. So
I guess I'm like
so that's it.
behind.
So what should I tell Chicago?
I'm behind.
Yeah, no, Pittsburgh and Baltimore hate each other. Every town hates it. I mean, look, Texans hate Oklahoma. Every town has their town they don't like. I'm sure Louisville and Cincinnati have a thing. Chicago, everyone hates Chicago. Like Boston, everyone in New England hates Boston.
We always wailed on Cleveland.
You can't
for the
feel bad for
Browns.
Cleveland. The Browns, what, the mistake by the lake? Yeah, I mean, Midwesterners are brutal to one. I mean, it's all in good spirit, but they're actually brutal to each other. I mean, it's the same way down here. But so, all right. So you guys want me to do something?
You never knew about the Pittsburgh-Baltimore rivalry?
Well, why would they? Yeah, no, they hate each other.
If you want to see something funny about that,
Pittsburgh and Philadelphia hate each other too.
There's a guy on here, Pittsburgh Dad.
It would actually amuse you if you want to see the Yinzer
hilarious
accent.
if you want to see how it is for Yinzer.
Yeah. So all right. So they want me to do Chicago. So I'm gonna try to do Chicago. This is your local Chicago PD police report. Today on the North Shore, 83 people died. Fortunately, none of them were Mike Ditka. If he had become our senator and then our president instead of Barack Hussein Obama, we might have had victories where we would have had our head of defense be Buddy Ryan. That would have been much better, and we would have had safeties that were very good because we all know that he knew how to handle the blitz. But unfortunately, we had politics in Chicago, and because that happened to us, now there are 83 people dead. But they did not come into the nice area, which is important. The L has been shut down. So if you live out there, good luck. And may I recommend you go to the beautiful state of Indiana. Gary awaits you right now. The weather is 74 degrees. It is a beautiful day here on Lake Michigan. And we want you to go enjoy this deep dish pizza from our local sponsor. How was that? Was that good? That's not bad. It's better than Wisconsin, though. I
don't know how.
Wisconsin's like when I went to Wisconsin. I went to Wisconsin once. I recently. I was in.
That cracked me up.
I was somewhere south of Madison, and I was in the one thing that's different on the eastern half of the Appalachian than the western half is how fast people speak. I mean, and tell me if you haven't noticed this for those of you who've traveled, right? We've kind of gone wherever, but it's fine. That when you're on the East Coast, people talk faster. Basically, if you go to New York, people talk so fast you can't have any opportunity of understanding them unless you're used to hearing things very quickly. But as you go slower, as you go further north, it gets a little more drawly. Things like that happen. You end up in Boston, and then all of a sudden you end up way up here where everyone's high as a kite, and that's how it is. Or if you go south, then the voice gets a little bit nicer, and you end up saying things like water and pretzel or mustard and all the weird things they say down south until it's all being nice and we all talk like this, all y'all down there. But when you go inland and you get past the Yinzers in the flat Ohio accent, something weird happens amidst the corn. People start speaking very slowly, enunciating silences within a single letter that makes a conversation that could take 5 minutes take 5 months. I have watched this happen, and nowhere are things slower than the great state of Wisconsin, where people move like mice eating cheese. I can't do it right well, but anyway, that is that's a trip around the Atlantic. Was that good? Was that funny? I did okay. I do love the Southern accent. I love all the accents, and I'm poking fun about that. So that is my effort to be me corn people. But it is true, actually. People talk slowly, and I actually have to. When I am in the Midwest, I have to make myself talk slower. And even on this podcast, my mother was from New York, so I can talk really fast. My dad was from Wisconsin, so I can talk really slow.
So fast.
I know I do.
Especially when you when you like have something like urgent.
Yeah,
And
no,
I'm like,
absolutely.
Can you like dial it
Yeah, I
back?
know. My wife talks
Can't
much
do
more
it.
slowly than I do. That's fine. But it's yeah, I'm glad you guys are enjoying the show. You know, it's we try to have a little bit of fun with it. So we're trying to lighten things up a little. I mean, because honestly, how many times do you want me to hear about? How many times do you want me to tell you it's all going to fall apart? I mean, I don't know if I could do other accents. I mean, I grew up out west.
You do a good Russian accent.
Yeah, but I can do a little bit, but I wish I knew more words. I could learn it. Marina's offered to teach us. She speaks Russian, you know, so that would be
You
cool.
know the important ones.
And
Vodka.
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 Exactly.
Vodka and borscht.
Let's see, but the what was I gonna say?
Здравствуйте,
I could be
товарищ.
Californian though, be like, not talking to you right now. I don't have time for this. SoCal is not going to deal with this, and this is not the way we do things here. You should know better than that. No, we used to make fun of Cali people in Arizona too back in the day, but I sound like I'm doing the clueless impression. Dana does better accents than I do. She could do European accents, so you can do like Irish and those sorts of things really good.
Well, what's weird with me is sometimes I just
You can do the English one.
I spontaneously start speaking in a British accent. It's one of the weird perks, I guess, that comes with having
them 300
little bit of brain damage.
And we like them 300-pound dollies. It's true, the letters that people don't pronounce are the most interesting thing. And the thing about Canada saying a boot, that's real. They do that up there. I will say that. Let's see. What do I think about white supremacists dressing in black plastic and invading black neighborhoods and killing people, according to a report of the mainstream media? I think it's BS. You know what? Honestly, I mean, they are so desperate to find someone out there who's going to go lynch people. They literally put out nooses of themselves. You see, speaking of which, you see whole institutions destroy themselves. I got Southerners in here. How do you guys feel about what NASCAR did? They basically wrecked their whole thing. I mean, NASCAR flying the Confederate flag, love it or hate it, awful. Is what they do. I mean, the France family has no respect for their own fans. They really don't. I mean, and look, that was bootlegging culture in the South. People don't realize that NASCAR came out of bootleggers who were literally running moonshine up to the north to make money. That's what they did, and that's why they wore the rebel flag, because they were rebelling against federal tyranny of a law that didn't make sense, of a law that was so stupid it got repealed 14 years later. That literally happened.
NASCAR is an institution just totally jumped the shark.
And when did it die?
Dale Earnhardt died. Then it was just.
Yeah, and I would say this: I used to go to races. I've been to Richmond. I've been to Pocono. I've never been to Dover, oddly enough, but I've been to there. I've never been to the Glen, but yeah, I used to.
I always wanted to go, but I think I would.
Am I allowed 2 wives in New Albany? Even though I'm having trouble finding one. You get one first. No, we're not going to have 2 wives. We're not going to do that. If you want that, you can go live under Sharia law.
You're not married?
He should. Ross needs a wife. Well, you know, we need a matchmaking service. We got so many good men, and we need more women.
Yeah, we have a lot of good men that need good women.
Yeah, and then the problem is politics kind of turns people aside. Women and men are interested in different things these days. So
yeah, really seriously, if you're trying to meet somebody, like,
I understand
we'll try to pass it along, because I know
we'll figure out something eventually. Yeah, maybe
are looking.
I mean, there's a lot of people who are broken who need help.
If we can connect 2 pieces or 2 people together, that would be.
So, do you guys have any other serious questions before the show takes off? I think I'm going to have to do my show on Wednesday. You have no, don't ask me questions. Your questions will be hard.
No, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun, because I've been telling you should do this for weeks.
Okay.
And you haven't listened to me. So
I always listen to you.
Yeah, well, yeah, sometimes. So, would you want to do something fun, like raffling off signed copies with like some fun treats from Maine, like maple candies, or like what else? Or like New Albion swag.
We do have some flags.
Some fun stuff. I put together really, really awesome care packages, and like
we would maybe do that.
We can get whatever books you want. He'll sign them. We
have stuff that's even more fun than the book.
Have fun with like making some packages just to.
Yeah, Data likes doing the raffle thing.
I do. I love making care packages.
She's much better at promotional. I'm dour and miserable.
Well, I thought it might be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Just for, would you guys like that? Would you guys have
Maybe we should have a little contest. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
I would love a Fluke or New Albion flag. Well, we have some of the Pines and Lines. Pines and Lines are awesome. Some people here actually have copies of them. I think Ross has one. It's a cool looking flag. Do you want to try to make good, healthy lyrics to the song? Can you sing the first bar? Not the whole first bar, just sing the beginning of it. Stop at the right place. I'll stop you. So we don't have it worked out yet.
I can't because the last line in the first verse is like,
things are all right here.
No, I can't.
You don't trust yourself?
No, I'll mess it up.
Okay.
I'll mess it up and I'll say something that'll get you kicked off of YouTube, and I don't want to do that.
What if I pinch you to stop? Just do the first two lines.
Because I don't remember how it goes. There's like 10 stanzas.
Just do the first 2 lines.
I don't remember them. I'm gonna screw it up.
I'll be on
our kingdom in the trees. From the to the rolling seas, from the mountains to the rivers to the lakes and all the bogs.
Something with logs.
Come up to New Albion. We got lots of logs.
I got to work on that. Okay. We're still working on this, honestly. So.
Oh my gosh, that was
and then we'll end the slog.
That was really funny.
Bring enough money and you can learn the real lyrics to the song.
Yeah,
anyway.
if you guys want to have some fun, we'll do like the books.
We'll do something. Maybe we'll do something. You know what? Wait a second. Joseph has a really good idea. If we started gift exchanges with staples from our area, that's a freaking awesome idea, man. What if we did like a secret Santa for all the New Albioners? That would be friggin' awesome.
That.
Wouldn't that be fun? Would you guys be with that? We'd figure out a way to do that. So we'd have people come from different areas. So what we could do, and maybe what we'll do is we'll combine it so you get a little taste of everything. So people would send something in because I want people to understand the whole thing of it. We'd have it all sent to one place.
Like
we'll split it up.
Real big up
here.
Well,
maple or and we'll have bourbon and whatever they have in Kentucky.
Stuff, lots of blueberry
hash.
Stuff.
Kidding, sort of. Whatever the things are, that would be cool.
I would like to try something Cajun kind of spicy.
Would you try some Cajun spicy? Well, we could even have people who aren't even
I've never really had proper gumbo. I don't know if I'd be able to.
How about a historical treasure hunt? You virtually hide a prize somewhere in history and then drop clues. That would be interesting. So I'm going to think about this. You guys have given me a lot to think about. I will think about it. I don't know.
I like that. This is so much fun. I love talking with creative people.
Absolutely. So
I like that. I love.
We will figure something out that will be fun, and we will organize it better. Of course, I'm running off my audience who wants to, hear me give deep commentary, but you don't need deep commentary. Look, you're screwed unless we figure out a way to make this work. So we need to get a lot of flags out there and start a new nation, because if we don't start a new nation, this one's broken. We need to trade it in before it wrecks on us and we get stuck at the side of the road and it's snowing outside and we're waiting for Jim Bob the tow truck man to come along and screw us over. So we'll have to figure that out. How about a mosquito screen face mask? That's not bad.
I have one. It's like
we didn't have bad mosquitoes this year.
What are those guys that wear those types of hats?
I'm down for a history hunt.
In Africa, like the safari
guys.
Could
do some geocaching.
It's like a safari type hat, but it has a net that comes all the way down past my shoulders and drapes around. So when they're like really bad and just
well, you know what? I tell you what, if we get, I'll meet you with a challenge. If we get this show, if it's one of these shows we get up to, and I watch this, if I get up to 100 people on here on one of these streams, and that's a challenge. That means you have to.
Oh, that means you guys got to tell a friend.
That what we'll do is I will figure out a way to come up with a historical treasure hunt for you, and we'll put some swag on the other side of it. So that'll be fine.
We would love to do hats.
We're gonna have to figure out how to do hats. Well, you guys have to help us. I need a designer. That's the problem. Believe it or not, I've designed.
I mean, you got the flag. The problem is trying to find a supplier that's
reasonably
priced, reasonably
especially if they're
priced.
missing. I know people can only take so much doom and gloom. We should have some fun. Sam is absolutely right. We will have some fun with it.
If there's anybody out there that knows any good suppliers, send us that information or the contact stuff. I would really love to support local businesses or just American businesses.
Or Canadian. We have to agree to help them because we brought them in.
Yeah, that's where
Because there's no Canada.
like French Canada. It's the best Canada in the land.
Yeah. Nous sommes Canadiens.
Yeah.
Even though it pisses off our friends from Alberta, but that's okay. They're not in our map.
I'm mesmerized by the flag. It's like Washington.
They got oil. You got Earl. You ever hear people say it that way?
Yeah.
ERL for oil?
Yeah,
Earl.
in the South. Earl.
I don't know how you say that.
Yep.
I reckon Dana could do a great North Ski Minnesota accent. Yeah, no, I can hear it. Can you do a Fargo accent? That's what he's asking for.
Oh, don't you know?
She can do it.
You betcha.
She can do it.
I sounded way more like a leprechaun than I intended.
So do they. It's interesting. They're such soft-spoken people, and they're all built like Paul Bunyan. It's weird.
Oh yeah,
why they wrecked Minnesota, man. I feel so bad for Minneapolis. We're gonna clean up Minneapolis. That's one of my goals.
I've always wanted to see.
Yeah,
Fargo.
that's pretty darn good. You want to go to Fargo? And you know what we really need? We need an RV. We will do Tom and Dana's world tour, where you get to watch us on stage tell stories about things where aren't really logical. We're like the main equivalent of Trailer Park Boys.
That RV is gonna have to basically be like half living space, half medical.
And half pets.
Half
we'll look like Raoul's Wild Aquarium coming out of
hospital.
friggin' UHF, you know.
And then a section for the turtles and the snakes, because they're coming if we're ever on the road. Like,
how can we encourage leftists to relocate out of conservative areas? What you got to do is just encourage them to become sane people. I mean, it's not bad that they're leftists. I mean, you need people who are collaborative to some extent. You just need to tell them, do you really think it's okay that you're just drifting? Because the problem with the left ultimately is that they don't really think, they feel. In fact, I'll tell you what, I learned this in the relationship before I met my wonderful wife, that you don't win conversations with women with logic. This is why men can't talk to women.
You can with me.
Yeah, I know, but you're special. But ultimately, you don't usually win those. Here's how you win. You talk about your feelings and you seek validation. That's how you go. And then you say, so you don't say, honey, this is true because A and B. You be like, honey, this is really important to me. Can you help me make this happen? This is really important.
You don't talk to me like that.
I don't need to, because you're not like a regular woman. Thank God. That's why I married you. But if you were like a regular woman, here's how I would do it. I would be like, honey, this really means a lot to me.
Okay.
My feelings are really involved in this. And it'll hurt a lot if this doesn't happen. Can we do this together?
If you ever came to me and said something like that, I would probably assume that you were under some sort of mind control, or you just.
So how would I actually come to you?
Or you just downed like a gallon of soy milk.
But it works. It actually works. You have to speak to people in the language they understand. This is the actual truth. I honestly mean that. That a lot of these people who are leftist are not thinking. You keep saying, how do you make them think differently? You don't make them think differently. You don't really make them think. You just, I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, but if you really wanted advice for how a right-wing person should speak to a left-wing person, you should talk to them in terms of safety, because ultimately they're motivated by fear or hope. And ultimately,
that's why you had so many women following the coronavirus.
Right, because I was keeping them safe. And that's why people are sad that it hasn't come back, because they want me to give them the illusion of safety, and they would pay me a lot of money to do it. But ultimately, I'm not here to tell you things just to keep you safe that make you feel good. I'm here to tell you things that keep you safe that make you feel bad or feel good. But it's ultimately about that. That's one of the things that you need to do.
True.
Yeah, the truth. But it's not just truth, because it's more than that. Some of it's opinion, but it's opinion that's guarded in a way to try to make you safe.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that you need to learn how to do. So listen to the Rusty Chevrolet song from Upper Michigan. Well, that sounds good. We'll have to do that.
My favorite Christmas song. I bet you it's cool.
I bet you it is too.
Can you put it on in the same?
I don't know. No, because it'll probably cause feedback. But you could put it on your phone in theory. We're not gonna make them listen to it, because
will you get a copyright strike?
No, actually, yeah, I will. So I'm just gonna play it once here, and I'm just gonna put it so it comes up. So we are going to listen. It's on VHS from 1987. How authentic is that?
Oh my God!
I love that. That's awesome. God, we're so. Those were the days.
Are you gonna play it?
No, I'm not gonna play it. I'm gonna play it. We will play it when it's off air. That ultimately we will absolutely do that, or that I was full of crap. Well, yeah, I can be so. I can certainly have my.
We were 7. We were 7.
Yeah, we were. That was a lifetime ago.
We would have been 6 turning 7.
Yeah. My wife is exactly 1 month younger than I am, so
Yeah.
I'm always older and more mature, and she's younger and more vivacious.
He always says, "I had a brain before you were even an embryo."
That's probably not actually technically correct. I don't say it that way.
you
I usually
did
say
have a
I have a
brain.
brain before you had a heart, but
It's like a big melon.
I know it's a thick skull, don't you all
It's
know?
like a bowling ball.
All right. Do we have anything else to say? You have anything else you want to put out there?
No, I mean, I think I'm okay.
Okay, so all right,
We'll
we'll go rest. Okay, because we're old and we have to sleep. Heavenly Father, please take mercy on us old people who are always tired and let us sleep well. We really need to do that tonight. But to everyone who's here, please keep everyone safe. Let us build upon the spirit of reconciliation that we've begun here, joy of recognizing that we are one people held together by the things that may seem like separation, that we can laugh, we can enjoy one another, we can take the delight of one another and look at the example of our Lord who went ahead and brought different people together to accomplish great ends when driven by the right virtues. Let us learn from that lesson and hope that he continues to guide our steps today. In Jesus' name I pray this. Amen. It's a nice prayer, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good job. I really should. One day I'm going to end up a preacher, which is kind of funny because I'll be one of those hellfire people with horn rimmed glasses.
I could totally see you as a preacher.
Yeah.
Your tea is balanced very precariously.
It's on the river.
Oh my gosh! If that would have fallen over, you would have just wrecked that whole.
I would have wrecked. I would have wrecked. Yeah, the Earthly Paradise of William Morris would have got it. All right, thank you everyone for being here. I will be check out Free Atlantic Voices. We got Kit Kanaz filing on Tuesday. He has a good episode. I've already listened to it, and we'll have Publius on Thursday. I will be back on Wednesday. We will be talking about more of the project, what we're trying to do here, and I'll try to find a good article for you. I'll probably do it Wednesday morning.
And if you have any ideas, other than what was suggested in the chat for like
New Albie, New Albie at protonmail.com.
Yeah, send us your ideas.
And if you really want a flag and you don't want to wait, we've been sending them out for 20 a piece. So if you really can't afford that, we'll try to get down to the cost. It costs like $5 for shipping.
And if you are interested in doing like a care package gift exchange, like a regional thing, drop us a line and we
thank you everybody. TWR, Susan, Brian.
We could randomly put just pull names and put people with people and
it'd be interesting
and
to
like
do that.
And then like jump
and I meant what I said. If we get to the point where there's 100 people, I will put together a historical sort of game for you guys. But I'm going to use really obscure things, and they'll have to be caught up in Atlantic history. I'll probably have to do a Canadian version that's separate too, because they can't come across the border. But I'll make everyone go to Quebec.
Is it going to be like a?
I have no idea. I haven't even thought about it. I don't know what it. Well, I'm going to have something that people can do from home because some people are sick and can't travel. You know how that goes.
Okay.
But they're going to have to do a little bit of research. But who knows? Maybe if we get to 1,000, I'll put something out there. Maybe I'll convince one of my friends to go hide something in.
We'll put an Easter egg out
under
there
the Serpent Mound in Southeast Ohio.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll put our own little Easter egg out there for everybody.
God bless everybody. You guys all have a wonderful night. Thank you for spending a little time with us this evening. For Dana, I'm Tom Kaczynski, and I'm checking out. How can we encourage leftists to relocate out of New Albion areas and into their own left? Hey, I always tell them, go to California, man. Hollywood, what's your dream? Go over there, maybe that's, and then we'll take some of the good Californians in. I think they're going to all end up on the West Coast anyway, and if they don't end up 6 feet under, but we'll see what happens. Not that I'm wishing bad things on people, it's just the reality. God bless. All right, no, we're not doing that.